Hello, team players, and welcome back. This is Local Football Flavor, where we obviously answer all of your questions. We are simultaneously broadcasting in a standard YouTube view as well as the vertical view for those who love to watch us vertically. That being said, it's going to be an amazing episode. Winning your trade deadline, getting all your teams lined up. Obviously, the sentence starts for the weekend and every play you should make. Let's go win some money today. Bob, it's going to be a fun day today, huh?
Should be.
We got all kinds of questions preloaded up. I'm excited.
Yeah, I mean, there has not been too much crazy news in terms of injuries this week. It seems like there's still some players that are limited. Dalton Kincaid doesn't look like he's going to be able to go this week. It says Chris Godwin is questionable, practiced. Rico Dowdle, quad injury, so that's a little bit interesting. Hopefully he gets cleared off the report. Shakir as well. Christian Watson limited. Odunze limited. DeAndre Swift practicing full. The biggest kind of throw under the rug that I read it yesterday, and I was very disheartened by it, was the fact that, and I wouldn't have drafted this player because of it, but Darnell Mooney supposedly broke his collarbone on the first day of training camp, and they said nothing. They said nothing to anybody about it. And to me, that I would have been like, oh, I'm not drafting this guy, instead of thinking like, oh, this is going to be pretty great. Davis Mills is going to be starting this week. Kami Fairbairn's not going to be playing this week. Trevion Henderson is going to be getting the workload because Ramondre Stevenson will be out. And it's interesting. I've heard rumblings that Jameis Winston is going to be starting this week. One of the bigger ones, Parker Washington. One of the bigger ones, Parker Washington, with a hamstring injury popping up on the report yesterday, but back today. So I'm really curious how that looks for sure. And then the biggest thing is RJ Harvey. It's RJ Harvey's season. Let's see what happens there. So let's get into some of these questions, Joe, and let's get rolling. All right. So Jesse, not Jesse. KJ.
Yeah, no, that's a great synopsis too.
Yeah. I picked up the Falcons D off of waivers. I have Seattle rostered as well. Am I getting too cute playing Atlanta over Seattle this week, or should I rock with Seattle? I think the thing you need to think about is in terms of where do you see points being scored in this game? Because what we know is that, like I said on Monday, is that the Rams have no problem scoring points, but Seattle does get a lot of turnovers. Now, on the other hand, when we look at a team like Atlanta, they're facing a team that they should be able to do better against from a just keeping the points low standpoint against Carolina. But we got duped into that last time too, when the Carolina Panthers put up 30+ points and you were all staring at a point. So for me, even though I do think that Stafford is going to put up a good amount of points, I do think that because Stafford's going to be passing the ball probably a good chunk, that there is a good chance that a turnover happens. So I still stick with Seattle, but I can see reasons why you want to start Atlanta. And I don't feel bad about either.
Let me throw this out here before we do KJ's deep dive up there. Let me just propose this, because we're going to answer all the questions anyway. It's what we do here at Local Football Flavor. You want to answer the live ones as they come in and then shuffle back to the pre-given ones? I know this is kind of like an on-the-fly question, but
yeah, no, I mean,
because like Frosty's sitting here watching live, many that are.
Yeah, we do answer all questions here. Let's see. Let's skip around a little bit today, guys.
Frosty just asked this one a couple minutes ago. When we are going to answer all the questions here. When we run out of live ones, we'll kick back to the original.
I don't even see Frosty here, but Jamie's here in the chat. Love to see you, Jamie.
KJ, baby. So Frosty, in a redraft,
CK
start a full PPR, standard setup, His quarterback is Nix and Dart. Obviously, you're not starting Dart. His running backs are Brown, Henderson, Marks, Judkins. He's got CD, London, Tez, Keenan Allen, Ridley, and then he's also got Kittle. Who should he package to upgrade at the flex, essentially?
All right, well, so if you're looking to upgrade at the running back, wide receiver, essentially in your flex right now, I think that you're going to have to utilize one of those quarterbacks and one of those running backs to make an upgrade. Now, what it feels like to me is you want to upgrade that wide receiver room because you might be a little bit nervous of Tez Johnson for future. Ridley obviously still hurt Keenan as well. So what I look at it and I say, I could probably take Marks out of that grouping of players, or I can take Henderson with that big game and possibly another big game coming. But I can take Marks right here, and I could pair him up maybe with Keenan and maybe with Tez right now for a team that wants to win right now. And you could potentially upgrade just a little bit. Now, I think that if you wanted to frame it in another way, Frosty here, and if you want to frame it in another way, what I see is that you are starting 8 people all the time. So you can start 2 flexes. And for me right now, I prefer Marks and Judkins at my flex. So I don't really care if I'm not starting a wide receiver there. But in your case, Frosty, Judkins has incredible matchups coming down the slate. And this is for everybody that owns Judkins, guys. Judkins has incredible matchups coming down the slate. But this team is inept at moving the ball downfield for a full 4 quarters. So this is going to land.
Door's going to be there, Bob. This is going better.
This is going to land. Judkins is still going to dominate the volume.
I can't even say that with a straight face.
If he's getting 22 plus carries or 20 plus carries a game, Judkins is going to settle into that 8 to 12 point mark each week. And the possibility of a touchdown makes that even better. In a redraft league or in a redraft PPR league, he might not hold as much value for you moving forward. So you can sell him. I don't like to sell him, but you can sell him, assuming people value that schedule going down, pair him up with Tez or Keenan, and see if you can get a better upgrade at your flex position that you want. Because I can understand why you might not want to start him. So those are the kind of trades that I would think about, Frosty. If you want to talk a little bit more about it, you can ask us another question in the chat, and we can just kind of keep going.
I'm going to hit you up with a different way. And guys, first of all, welcome, Frosty. We do the quick hit deep dive system here. We're kind of treating this only a little bit more as a deep dive, giving a little more time. But given that your follow-up question was about the quarterback element and rebuilding it without Dart there, with the focus still starting on upgrading your flex, I'm actually looking at your best asset to move is Kittle. I would do Kittle and pair him up, maybe even with Tez while the iron's still hot there, and do a 2 for 2. Knowing that you're getting a decent tight end, because the thing with Kittle is he's got name recognition, but he also has the capability of just being equivalent to off the waiver wire type guy. So I don't even necessarily know if I care. I
like Kittle. I like Kittle a lot. But Joe, you're absolutely right in the fact that you can take Kittle, you can take the value that Kittle is, downgrade at that position to a player that's still going to get some decent production, and then take a running back that you feel is going to get more production than that. So, Joe, let's keep going here. I'm going to put you in control of the sticks because I actually don't see Frosty's question, and I don't know why I don't see that.
Right, so, Adam, you're up next here. He's got offers JJ and Woody for St. Brown and Sharps. I'm on Team J. Jeff and Woody on that one, man.
So, Adam, here's what you need to understand about this one. So everybody that just joined us, we are Local Football Flavor. We do answer every question that comes in. So please feel free to stick around, ask a question. If you don't hear your question answered right away, we do answer everything. So feel free to watch us on replay or stick around. I feel that I still want to keep St. Brown. And here's why. I value Woody higher.
Oh, yeah, I'm not doing this trade.
I value Woody higher than Sharps. but I value St. Brown a magnitude more than Jefferson right now. This is not to say that Jefferson is playing poorly. This is to say that J.J. McCarthy is going to be
I don't know about that.
Okay. J.J. McCarthy threw the ball a ton last week, and Jefferson and Addison did not benefit from that at this moment in time. St. Brown is going to continue to get a respectable floor and always has the opportunity for a very, very high ceiling. Okay. But now with Woody here, Woody has a much higher ceiling than Sharps for me on a weekly basis. So it really comes down to, Adam, what running back do you want? Because if you can see Jefferson with the schedule that he has right now turning out really good production in the future, you take the Jefferson Woody side. But if you think that St. Brown is going to continue to be stable with a very high ceiling, and you think Sharps is going to punch it in the end zone every so often, I would stick with the St. Brown side. Those are my thoughts on that one. It can be.
I'm on Team J-Jeff. Of that trade, I would take the J-Jeff side. So you also got offered Aaron Jones and Henderson for Genty. Your running backs are Genty, White, Sharps, Bucky, and Kamara, and you're solid at receiver. See, I would take Aaron Jones and Henderson over Genty. We talked about this a lot building up to this point in the year. We're at the spot where three things are smacking the Raiders in the face. First, the schedule's getting way harder. Second, they're quitting. Third, they're quitting. Also, they're hitting the rookie wall with Genty. So you look at that. If you can get rid of Genty for a rookie who just turned it on and might have just got a starting gig, maybe, Vrabel, you never know with, but also get Aaron Jones as a nice, solid, stable piece, you pair up basically Henderson and Bucky through your playoff run. That's a very good playoff backfield. When you look at weeks 15 through 17, I would 100% pull that trigger and offload Genty.
So I think it's a good offer, but the one problem that I have about the offer is Aaron Jones. This isn't to say that Aaron Jones is a bad player. He's a very good player. The problem is that he doesn't stay healthy. And he's very productive when he's on the field. But the problem is over the entirety of the season, even considering the games that he missed, he's averaging about 7 to 9 carries a game and around 2 to 6 targets. That is, and I understand that Genty is a name right now that does still carry value. I would wait to trade Genty after this Dallas game because I want to know how the trade of Quinnen Williams and Logan Wilson, how that changes this Dallas defense. The only thing, because again, Genty's value isn't going to plummet unless he gets hurt, because the value is going to stay the same from last week as it was to this week. There wasn't a blow-up game last week. Now, the problem is do you like Henderson this week? If you like Henderson this week.
I think the problem, Bob, is you're going to lose the value. The value is you buy Genty for the Dallas game. That's why I think he's at the peak of his selling. That's why I would move Genty.
I see that. I see the reasons for that, but I also don't believe in Aaron Jones that he's going to be any better than Sharps or Kamara going forward. I just don't see it. Especially
I think Henderson is the one you really want in this. Like I said, Henderson and Bucky are the two that I want to be starting.
If I could get somebody outside of Aaron Jones, if it was Henderson and somebody else, sure. But here's the other thing that you need to know is that there's a very good chance that when Ramondre comes back, that they're just going to hand it back over to him. So there is a lot to be nervous about.
Oh, I know. I'm taking the risk.
Handing over a guy that doesn't lose carries to anybody realistically. The offenses are bad for Vegas though. So I think there's a lot to consider there. My head says that I want to wait for a better offer for Genty, but my head's also telling me that I do want Henderson. So if I can get Henderson without giving up Genty, sure, I'd do that. You know, KJ, what's up? And we'll get to your question.
You just got Henderson with Henderson and a different piece.
Quincy, what's up? Starting Otten over Colston Loveland. I think it's okay from what we saw last week. Now, Cade Otton wasn't my favorite guy last week. We know this. I talked to you about that, why he was problematic last week from a statistical standpoint. He's running up against another difficult matchup this week. Okay. So it's one of the worst ones on the slate right now. So when I look at Cade Otton, is there better options this week than Cade Otton? I would think about Pat Freiermuth. We saw Pat Freiermuth absolutely explode against the Bengals the last time they played. It seems like the Bengals, they got rid of some players. It doesn't seem like they have the capability to stop them again. So, realistically speaking, I think that guys like Pat
Freiermuth smoke the Bengals. There is something to that.
I think that Pat Freiermuth is a good option this week. I think that Dallas Goedert is a good option this week. And guys like A.J. Barner, potentially a good option this week. Cade Otton is going to walk into targets this week. That's not going to be denied. He's going to get targets this week. The question is what part of the field will those targets come in? And will he be able to get 9 receptions like he got last week? That was his highest total on the year. His next highest total was 7 receptions. So if he ends up getting between 6 to 9 receptions, he's going to be worth starting this week, even in a tough matchup against Buffalo. But Buffalo usually limits tight ends to around 4 receptions to 3 or 4 receptions a game.
Defense isn't that's super great.
They're not, but they do limit. So just keep that in mind. Quincy, I need 1 running back and 2 flexes. Chase Brown, Henderson, Harvey, Swift, and Sutton. Sutton's off the table. Sutton's going to be off the table for the foreseeable future, guys. He's a guy that I do like, but Bo Nix is not looking at him as much as he used to in the past. He's off the table. So now it comes down to Brown, Henderson, Harvey, and Swift. And I think you have to start Chase Brown. We talked about this on Monday, where the matchup is good enough. And the Steelers, if Flacco is healthy and slinging the ball around, they're going to have to put more guys.
The Steelers apart.
And they're gonna have to play that deep ball. They're gonna have to play against Jamar a little bit heavier. So they're not going to be able to always bring people down into that box like they want to. So as it sits for me now, Chase Brown is a must start this week if you have Chase Brown. And whether it's a flex or running back, I think that Chase Brown is a must start this week. I'm not saying that it's going to happen again like it happened last time, but I am saying that the matchup is good enough that it should happen again. But just be aware, right, is that 2 weeks prior to this, the Steelers defense stopped Jonathan Taylor, and Jonathan Taylor only got 70 yards, which is low what he got all year. But they ended up getting after Daniel Jones. So if they could do that against Indy, they should be able to do that against Cincinnati. But the safety valve for Flacco will be Chase Brown underneath and Jamar Chase. So even if they limit his running overall totals, he should get a nice reception total. So that's why I think that out of this grouping of guys, Chase Brown is a really good start, and he is a must start for me this week. My second guy on this list would be Trevion Henderson. He's going to get the full workload against a defense that absolutely has gotten worse. And I don't think that it's even close. And so when I look at those two, if you would have asked this question a couple of weeks ago, people would be like, oh, Henderson, we were doing the same thing for ourselves. But I think those two guys, with their capabilities against the defenses that they're facing, I think that those two guys are definitely starting there. And then Harvey and Swift, for me, have a similar value. I think that with Harvey being the only running back on the roster right now.
I'd rather go Harvey. To me, that's not even close.
I would be on Harvey. So it'd be Chase Brown, Henderson, and Harvey for me. I could see why you would want to start Swift, though. Penn, Kyren or Saquon rest of season? Joe, how do you feel about this?
I think I want Kyren. I get that most people aren't going to want that. I've been skeptical of Saquon the whole year. I mean, mostly because of his carry history and injury history. I think there's just a simple fact that it's going to hit a wall. And we're seeing that a little bit. And we're also seeing the emergence of Hurts as a thrower. And all of that I know what I'm getting out of Kyren. So I'm more comfortable going with Kyren than I am with Saquon when it's all said and done. Mostly, again, because I believe we're going to be entering the playoffs week 14, 15, and Saquon will be on the IR. That's the fundamental reason I'm believing that.
While I disagree with that, what I do think, and I do think this is important when we talk about these guys, because other people have questions about them as well. When I look at these two players, we talked about Kyron's kind of work throughout the rest of the season here, is that he does have Blake Corum breathing down his back, but the matchups that he's going to face are good enough that if he gets the red zone usage that he's gotten before and he's gotten this year as well, and he can punch in 2 touchdowns, he's going to have great value. As it goes to the Eagles, the thing you need to worry about with the Eagles always is Jalen Hurts punching in one of those close touchdowns as well. But also the defenses that he's facing for Saquon are defenses that Saquon should be able to beat. He has Lions, Cowboys, Bears, Chargers, Raiders, Commanders, Bills. And for me, while I like Kyren Williams a lot, outside of Jalen Hurts, which Jalen Hurts is showing that maybe he wants to pass a little bit more. The Monday night game was a little bit gross, but I think that Saquon is still is higher than Kyren for me, but it's very close. It's much closer than it should be right now at this point in the season. So I would take Saquon because I think that Saquon's schedule, especially over the next 4 weeks, is going to be very competitive. And then when they face the Commanders December 20th, I think that Saquon could absolutely have a game where he pops off for 30, 40 points. And I think that could win you the playoff matchup there. So I do like him there. And it goes Scorpio here. Just
play. I mean, that's the entire thing.
As we go to some of these questions here too, is A.J. Brown a cut player at this point? A.J. Brown is not a cut, but A.J. Brown is no longer a must start. So the problem
That's right.
The problem with A.J. Brown is that we bought A.J. Brown at the beginning of the season hoping that he would assume the mantle of being the most targeted Eagles wide receiver. Now, while he is getting some targets, there are games where he's getting targets, and he absolutely can perform when he gets those targets, as in week 3. He had 10 targets, 6 receptions, 109 yards against Minnesota. 4 receptions, 6 yards, 121 yards, 2 touchdowns. But it's no longer the case that he is the guy. Where this was last year, where A.J. Brown was relied on in crunch time, now Devonta Smith is being relied on in crunch time. And A.J. Brown has taken the back seat to both Dallas Goedert and Devonta Smith and Saquon Barkley. So he is now like 3rd or 4th here in the target chain. And he's frustrated by it. He wants to win, but he's also frustrated by it. He's not a cut. He is a guy I would trade. And I told you guys that I would have traded him last week if given the opportunity and people would take him. But he's not a cut. Now, as it goes, talking a little bit, Joe, up here, I want to clear some of these other questions out here a little bit too, related to playoffs. Jesse will come back to this question. When it comes to the playoffs, when we look at the Saints, this is something that I talked to you about last week, is that the Saints have a really good playoff schedule. Panthers, Jets, Titans. And if I'm looking for a back-end defense to hold on to, if I have the roster spot, I am absolutely 100% taking the Saints and using the Saints during the playoffs. Joe, I'm just going to star some of these questions here that we are moving
This
past.
is the concern that I have with taking broken teams in your fantasy playoffs. It's, will they still care? I mean, I know that that's a difficult one to throw out there, but the reality is that the Saints have a new system, they have a new coach, and they're playing a bunch of young guys. Yeah. But when teams implode, like Tennessee is right now, they implode to the max. And that's my fear with taking these truly bad teams.
They play Tennessee, they play the Jets, and they play the Panthers. All 3 of those teams are imploding. So
no, I hear you. No, don't get me wrong.
I like that idea. Quincy, would you drop Slayton for Mac Hollins or Coleman on waivers? Joe likes Keon Coleman. I do like Mac Hollins. He has gotten usage over the past 2 weeks that has been slightly surprising. Depending on what quarterback the Giants decide to start, I think that Darius Slayton is a good play. If they decide to start, Jameis Winston, I think that I think that Slayton is going to have a good amount of value. And it says that he's going to start versus the Packers. So would I drop Slayton for Mac Hollins? No. But I think that Mac Hollins at this point in time, with how diverse that wide receiver room is, I think he's interesting to keep your eye on. And if you're in a deep league and you have the roster space, I absolutely think Mac Hollins and Coleman should be rostered. But I think I'm still going to ride with Slayton, because when you think about downfield targets, Slayton kind of projects that way, right? And Jameis Winston loves to check the ball downfield. So I can see this game as being a little bit lower for Wan'Dale Robinson and Slayton actually having a decent enough game. Michael, traded Caleb, Derrick Henry, Ferg, and Watson for Lamar, Jefferson, Pitts, and Ridley. Running backs are JT, Bijan, Jones, and Bill, Lamb, Jefferson, A.J. Brown, DJ Moore, Ayuk, Ridley, Evans, Fannin, Pitts, 12-man win or loss. I don't think that you lost, but I do not like giving up Derrick Henry with Lamar Jackson being back. Yes, they're not the offensive juggernaut we saw last year. I think they're going to find their footing pretty quickly. Ridley, for me, Ridley and Watson are kind of non-assets at this point in time. Christian Watson, a little bit more of an asset. It's disappointing. Ridley has been hurt. The quarterback play has been putrid and all that stuff. I do like Pitts, and I think Ferg is better than Pitts, but knowing you have Fannin on your roster, Fannin and Pitts, I think are going to be fine enough. I think that Caleb into Lamar, when you look at the stat sheet, Caleb over the last several games has been more productive in some games than Lamar has. But I think that owning Lamar is going to be good for you. So then this comes down to Jefferson and Derrick Henry. And I like Derrick Henry a little bit more than Jefferson. So I don't think you won or lost. I think that it's fair. But I probably would have rather have kept Ferg than Pitts, and I'd probably rather have kept Derrick Henry. I don't think it's like I said, I don't think it's a loss, but I don't think it's an overwhelming, yes. And Joe loves Lamar and Jefferson, so he is going to say it's an overwhelming yes, because he also hates Caleb Williams and doesn't like Caleb Williams' production. CK, I'm on Flacco. And there are many reasons why I'm on Joe Flacco this week. But one of the biggest ones is that Aaron Rodgers is an unreliable narrator in the life of the Pittsburgh Steelers right now. He is going to probably have a good game against the Cincinnati secondary. He had one before with all passing all those touchdowns to the tight ends. I'm not saying he's not going to have a good game, but if Joe Flacco is healthy right now, he didn't throw today. Hopefully he throws tomorrow, and he throws going into the weekend. If I can do that, I would be starting Joe Flacco. The inverse of this, though, is that if the Steelers look like they found their footing, then Rodgers would be the guy that you would want to start, because Rodgers would have more opportunities.
No, it's definitely Flacco. It's not even close. There's no even trying to talk this into it. Don't talk this into existence. It's Flacco.
Josh, you're not on Trey Tucker this week. You can't be. So it's definitely not Trey Tucker. When I look at these other guys, and it's comparing Woody Marks with Tez Johnson. Tez Johnson does have touchdown upside on a week-to-week basis. He caught 2 last week. But the thing is, and we saw Kamani Vidal kind of suck at this when after Joe Alt got hurt, because they were all kind of in flux. But Woody Marks against Tennessee's defense is definitely something that can be taken advantage of. So I'm on Woody Marks over Tez Johnson. But I could see many reasons why.
No, I agree. The other thing, what do you have going for him? So the other thing that Tennessee has going for Woody has going for him is that backup quarterbacks hand the ball off more often.
Yeah, we said
and
that
you're going to get more of a volume play, and you're less touchdown dependent. And let's face it, there could be some points on there in Houston. This is one of the most lopsided calls we've had all year in terms of betting on Houston this year. The spread is not going to get.
And the other thing too is if Houston has the lead, they're running Woody Marks into the ground. So just keep that in mind. Make it's going good. For everybody in the chat, thanks for joining us. We're Local Football Flavor. We answer every question. We see a lot of questions in the chat. And we have some questions from before the show started that we are going to get to, but we want to clear up the people that we are here, that we've got live in the chat and we will get to everything. Breaking news,
Absolutely.
Lots of controversy over Des Bryant getting a haircut while sitting in Jerry Jones's box during the Cowboys-Cardinals game, calling the Cowboys show-offs and not worried about wins. I think it's a fair call out, Steve. Jerry Jones is always concerned about what the product looks like. That's why Jerry World looks the way it looks. That is why there are so many things there that look the way they do. Joe can tell you this. He went to Jerry World.
Jerry World's amazing.
For a Steelers game. So when
it's
you look at
that happens to have a football game happening on it, which summarizes the Cowboys perfectly.
When you look at it, yeah, he wants to win, but he doesn't have to win for the Cowboys to be a franchise that makes money. People are still going to go to the Cowboys games. It doesn't matter the quality of the product on the field. They're going to go to bitch and moan. So yes, you want to put a good quality product out on the field, but does he care about it? I think he's too old to care. Quincy, start 1 wide receiver, 2 flex. QJ Myers, Slayton Hunt.
Post something, Bob. What if Jerry Jones has hit that point in the league that every guy has this in their league? The one that goes, you know what? I'm going to take advantage of him. And I'm going to figure it out. All I got to do is set up a couple little breadcrumbs, a little misdirection here. And on Thursday, I'm striking.
That's a valid question. I
think we're there. I mean, the Cardinals have been that team forever.
Maybe. So, Quincy, start one wide receiver, flex 2. QJ, Myers, Slayton, Hunt, Spears, and BTJ if he plays. So if BTJ plays, then Myers would be a hard start. It takes a couple weeks for players that are new to a system to acclimate to the environment of the system.
That's right.
And
it's also a very hard system to acclimate to. It's one of the hardest in terms of moving parts offenses the Jaguars are. So
Jacoby Myers.
I don't think I play Myers for 2 more weeks because
Jacoby Myers doesn't profile for me well this week, so he's on the bench. Then you're looking at BTJ. If BTJ plays, I think that BTJ continues to be a reasonable enough play, but he draws a tough matchup as well. All these Jaguars wide receivers draw a tough matchup. Like I said, if Winston's starting, I think that Slayton is an under the radar play if he's healthy too, because he was dealing with an injury as well. If he's healthy, again, he didn't practice Wednesday with a hamstring injury. If he's fully healthy and he has Jameis Winston, just understand last week against the Bears, he went 4 for 4 for 89 yards before he got hurt. And then the week before he was 7 for 5 or 5 for 7 with 62 yards. So if Jameis Winston's slinging the ball around, I'm absolutely on Slayton. And then when it comes to the flexes, I think that although it's scary to be on QJ this week, I don't think it's a bad call to be on Quentin Johnson this week. The Jaguars aren't proving that they can do a lot, stop a lot on defense. The only question that you have to ask yourself is he going to get the targets that he got against Tennessee, or is he going to get the targets he got against the Steelers? He's also limited with a shin injury. So if I'm looking at this right now on the table as I have it here, it's Slayton and QJ, assuming if all injuries are cleared, it would be BTJ, Slayton, and QJ. If all injuries are not cleared, then I would put Hunt in for whatever one is injured.
Yeah.
Because Hunt is going to probably get some end zone time against the Broncos this week. Again, like I said, the Broncos will give up something to these players.
So, Adam, you got offered Kyren and CeeDee Lamb for your St. Brown and Genty.
I'd do that.
I'll talk St. Brown.
Adam, I'd do that in a heartbeat. It's that you don't even have to ask about that. I love St. Brown, but Kyren and CeeDee, the production that you can get.
We're not going to go through all this in detail. This is going to be a quick hit. You take CeeDee. That's
you
the
take
answer
CeeDee.
there.
And again, for anybody that owns Amon-Ra, guys, Amon-Ra is going to be productive. The Lions are going to be competitive. There could be a point where the Dallas Cowboys aren't competitive anymore and CeeDee starts to get angry or mad. But CeeDee's a competitor, and he's going to want to win every game. He's not. He will want to give up.
CeeDee's going to ball out, dude. You don't need to worry about that.
Really liking Hunter Henry anytime touchdown tonight. It's fair.
Love the Beck call out there. Hey, you're feeling it. You're feeling it. Thursday night football gets weird. We all know that. I personally avoid betting
tight ends on Thursday night, Joe. Tight ends on Thursday night are an interesting. I personally just don't bet
touchdowns on Thursday night football. Personally, I prefer unders on it.
He also hasn't scored a touchdown since the Cleveland game. I think it's an interesting bet. Would you trade
Ibuka, Swift, and Benson for Jamar Chase?
Yes. Yes.
You think Ibuka's that close to Chase?
Quincy, you know me, and I have been pounding the rafters for Emeka Egbuka all season. Okay.
All season.
And I think Emeka Egbuka can easily finish as a top 10 wide receiver this year, even knowing that that the injuries are there. I do think that you are giving up a lot. I do think that Egbuka, Swift, and Benson is a lot. But this is one of those moves, Quincy, that trims the fat. And if you're trimming the fat from your roster, and looking for playoff matchups, right? Then we have to go in and
I would do this. I would offer this trade. I don't think from the Jamar Chase I would accept it, though.
If I'm getting back Jamar Chase, I want Jamar Chase.
No, if I'm getting Chase, there's no doubt you want Chase. If you own Chase, is this a good enough haul? That's my fundamental question in this. I don't think it is.
Yeah, it depends. It depends. Scorpion.
You don't have no running backs.
Derrick Henry, but you're such a solid team, Quincy. We'll pull that team up again. You're such a solid team. Derrick Henry, Jaylen Warren, and Dowdle have to start too. Warren for sure has a great matchup. I fully agree with you, Scorpion, that Jaylen Warren is one of the guys.
If Rodgers hands the ball off to him,
that I do want to start this week.
There is a ton of heat in Pittsburgh for Rodgers not handing the ball off and establishing the run at all. And even the defense is calling him out.
There's a lot of heat. And Quincy, the heat's coming from a matchup where basically, 2 weeks or last week, he was running the ball very well in the first half and then stopped. They just didn't give him the ball anymore.
Basically 2 weeks ago they did that.
And that was really weird. Now, Rico Dowdle gashed Atlanta the last time out. Or didn't gash Atlanta, but could have gashed Atlanta the last time out, right? He scored a touchdown. He had 10 carries for 30 yards. And so I consider that gashing to a degree because that's a limited amount of touches, and he got a touchdown in that. Dealing with the quad injury, I'd have to wait to see if that quad injury clears up because that does matter. Now, if you want to base this just on projections, Rico Dowdle and Derrick Henry have higher projections this week than Jaylen Warren, but they're not so far apart. Derrick Henry is going to be in a matchup that on paper is a bad matchup for him. Okay?
I can't bench King Henry.
It's a bad matchup on paper because Cleveland has been playing running backs fairly good all year. But then last week, Devin Achane absolutely, or a couple weeks ago, Devin
Achane did by catching it, though.
But Achane had 13 carries for 82 yards, 4 targets for receptions for 3 yards. And then when you look at what can happen here, Breece Hall had it on receptions, and he had a good amount of yards on the ground, and they utilized him pretty well. 21 carries, 83 yards, and a target for a touchdown.
So Breece Hall is Baltimore, or correction, the Jets run the Miller-like version of Baltimore's offense. That's a better comp. I'm going Henry and Dowdle. That's my two, Scorpion.
And that's fair. I'm on Henry. I'm on Warren and Dowdle, but I don't really want to bench Derrick Henry either. But I want to know what that state of Dowdle's injury is because I do think that Dowdle has a great matchup. Now, if you want to play, like Joe said, I like the projections say, Derrick Henry and Dowdle are the guys. If you're looking at the projections, and Jaylen Warren is lower, but I do think this is absolutely a matchup that they can feast off of because they are having a lot of problems in Pittsburgh, and they should utilize Jaylen Warren. Jaylen Warren had a good game against Cincinnati the last time out. Jason, we'll get those questions. Just send them back in. Flaky from overseas. Love it. Would you drop Spears for Matt Collins? Yeah, I would. There's no reason at this point in time to say that Tennessee is going to be any better than they are right now. And like I have told you many times, I do prefer to keep the running back over the wide receivers. But as I see it right now, right, is that like Spears is always a threat to score a touchdown. If he scores a touchdown, he's going to have a great game. Same goes for guys like Mac Hollins, right? But the thing that's interesting about Mac Hollins, though, is that Against Cleveland, he had 7 targets. Against Atlanta, he had 2. And then last week, he had 9. He has had some weeks over 4 and then nothing. So you got to ask yourself, would you just rather keep the running back, or do you need to take that chance on a wide receiver? Because Matt Collins is not going to be a start like every week, and he's not going to be a comfortable flex play in some considerations, and neither is Spears. I value them pretty much the same. It just depends. Do you want the wide receiver or the running back? And I think that Matt Collins gets usage. When he gets the usage, he's going to get good usage with it. Right. Dustin, what's happening? Who's a better end-of-season stash, Philly or the Bucks? Joe, how do you fall on that? Philly or the Bucks?
Pull the defenses here. Defenses.
End of season, Bucks are playing against the Falcons, the Panthers, and the Dolphins. And Philly, we just went over Philly's schedule when we were talking about Saquon. So let me pull that back up again.
Why are the Bucks as one of the best defenses in Week 15, and Philly right there with them? So they're 2 of the better options in Week 15. In Week 16,
so to be honest
likewise,
with you,
they're 2 of the better they're 2 above average options. And in Week 17, this is where Tampa would get the edge over Philly. Philly's a below average matchup for their defense in 17.
Yeah.
So I would say both are above average choices, but I would pick the Bucks.
Okay. Yeah, and I'm on Philly, but I could easily be swayed into the Bucks. Philly, I like Philly's. I like Philly.
17, it doesn't matter.
Right. I like Philly against Vegas, and I like Philly against Washington. And I think Week 17, you just pick up a defense, whatever one you like, because there's going to be some defenses probably available for you Week 17. And guys, if you left a question before the show began, we have not forgotten about them. We will get to them. Do not worry about it. Galaxy, Ty Warren owner said he's available. Any trade ideas? My roster is Lamb, London, Odunze, Diggs, JT Judkins, Marks, Harvey. This is a very phenomenal lineup. Goddard, Mason Taylor, also Brissett or Nix, I can throw him in. So Galaxy, if I'm trying to get Jaylen Warren right now, I think it's fair to offer a trade of like Diggs and Goddard. I think that's enough to get Tyler Warren right now. Just to understand that Tyler Warren's on bye this week. So he's probably looking for a tight end to start this week. If you're comfortable starting Mason Taylor this week, that's cool too. Throwing in a quarterback, if he values a quarterback, sure. If he wants to do like Tyler Warren and Goddard I think that Tyler Warren for Goddard and Diggs is fair. If you want to give up Odunze, if you want to give up Diggs, that's fair too. If you'd rather push one of those running backs in, let's say Marks straight into Tyler Warren, maybe you can get something like that done, but it looks like he wants another tight end back. So I would trade a tight end plus one of my position players for Tyler Warren, but I could easily see myself wanting to trade one of those quarterbacks. And you caught lightning in a bottle with Jacoby Brissett. Maybe you want to pair Jacoby Brissett and Dallas Goedert for Tyler Warren. If that makes you comfortable, I'm fine with that too. Drifters, family, my Dynasty Juggernaut team just scored a major trade. Superflex, and it has Lamar Baker, Cook, Christian McCaffrey, Barkley, Lamb, Jefferson, Adams, Tetton, Diggs on the wide receivers, but Hockenot and a tight end. I'm working on McBride or Kittle. I think that that's smart. I think that the guy Kittle's going to cost you less because he's older. McBride's going to cost you a little bit more, but I think McBride's the guy that I'd rather have. Nino, don't get me wrong. I know it's Josh Allen, but I just didn't like his playoff schedule. So going back up here, Nino, to your trade here, would you send Josh Allen and J-Mo for Caleb and Rishi Rice? I got Purdy as my backup right now, but he seems to not want to play football in 2025. Yeah, it sucks. I drafted him too. I got rid of him weeks ago. So, Joe, this is a question from earlier. Nino had a follow-up on it. Would you trade Josh Allen and J-Mo for Caleb and Rishi Rice, knowing that the schedule for Josh Allen of New England, Cleveland, and Philly doesn't look as good? So
here's why I definitely want to have Allen, and it's mostly because I don't want to spend on Rishi. Rishi Rice is at the peak of his sales value right now, guys. And the reason for this is he's blowing up the charts. Everyone knows he was going to, and he's going to keep doing it. But Rishi actually has a harder playoff slate that is under the radar dirty than Josh Allen's. And it's because of the scheduling, not because of who it's against. You look at what Kansas City did last year. As soon as the week started getting weird because of Christmas and all these other holidays that Kansas City has to play on because heaven forbid Patrick Mahomes isn't on a holiday, their fantasy value plummeted. And they played against some really bad defenses, Steelers included in that group. So Rishi is going to look like he's playing in an amazing matchup, but not be actually delivering in your fantasy playoffs. So to me, I don't want to spend the check that you're cutting here on Rishi. Now, if you were going to tell me it's CeeDee Lamb and Caleb, I'd do that. But I don't want to spend. And don't get me wrong, Rishi's at the peak of his sales right now. If I have Rishi, I'm selling him in every non-dynasty keeper league I have. But you disagree because you want the points now. I want to win in the Super Bowl. And that's the difference. I'm not fighting to get in the playoffs. I'm already concretely in it. If you are fighting to get in the playoffs, Rishi's a great buy. I don't think he's going to give you the value in the playoffs. And that's why I do not want to give away Allen for Rishi. Which is fundamentally how I look at that trade.
This is just another way to look at it here, Nino, is that coming up for the Bears in the playoffs, you have the Browns, the Packers, and the Niners. And so 2 of those games are going to be in Chicago, and 1 of those games is going to be in the West Coast. And so if you believe the narrative, and this is the thing about trading quarterbacks, right, is that most quarterbacks are going to put up some good numbers, and there's only a couple quarterbacks that are going to hit that very, very, very high ceiling. You have 2 of them that can hit the high ceiling with these 2 quarterbacks, but you got to ask yourself, matchup-wise, coming down the pipeline here, are these matchups that you want to attack with Caleb Williams? Because while I like Rashee Rice, one of the things that you need to understand about JMO is that Dan Campbell has resumed taking over play calling. And he actively said in press conferences, I want to get JMO the ball more. And what did he do? He got JMO the ball more.
Oh, so Dan Campbell does not lie.
As Dan Campbell goes, I do believe Dan Campbell when he says that he's going to get certain players involved. I do believe that. Now, when it comes to the schedule, right, you've got coming down the slate here, you have Eagles, Giants, Packers, Cowboys, Rams, Steelers, Vikings. And I do believe that JMO is going to be useful in those games. For me, it's the fact of which wide receiver is going to score more points over the totality, because the quarterbacks are probably going to be within the same realm of one another. Both quarterbacks can throw up a stinker if the ball goes in a different direction.
Who do you trust more in bad weather?
I think it's more likely that Caleb plays worse in poor weather than Josh Allen.
Yeah.
And I think that JMO is light years below Rashee Rice from a fantasy points perspective. But Josh Allen and Caleb are like closer than they need to be. So like for me, I think you have to ask yourself, how do you feel Rashee Rice is going to perform? And do you think he's going to outperform JMO? And I think it's likely that he does. So then the second question you have to ask yourself is, will Josh Allen have more 25-point games than Caleb Williams moving forward, especially in the playoffs? And if you worry or are concerned about the weather, then it's reasonable to stay with Josh Allen. And when it goes to Rashee Rice, if Patrick Surtain is back in the last week of the season, and close to the last week of the season here, week 17, then he has to face Patrick Surtain. And then what do you do there? Right? As Joe was saying, you have a 4:25, a 1 o'clock, a 4:30, at 8:20, a 1 o'clock, and 8:15. And one of those games is Thursday, November 27th, which is Thanksgiving. So, I'd have to think about that more. Right now, I'm saying stick tight with Josh Allen, but I do want Rashee Rice on my team, but maybe not in that trade necessarily. So, Joe, let's keep going with some of these questions. I saw you had some technical difficulties. Michael, this is one of the problems that I have with Justin Jefferson. This is one of the problems that I have with all of those wide receivers. These are going to be good matchups for the Minnesota wide receivers moving forward. However, J.J. McCarthy is proving that he's not able to capitalize on all these good matchups yet. 12 targets, 8 of them were trash. It sucks. So I would tend to sit tight and not trade for Jefferson unless I wanted a wide receiver that kind of has a peak value. Would you trade St. Brown for Igbuka? And better's out of them too. So if I'm trading Igbuka from your trade that you said earlier, Quincy, if I'm trading Igbuka, I want one of those top flight guys. I think one of those top flight guys is fair to have. And if I'm going after one of them, I want Jamar over St. Brown. So that's kind of just my viewpoint on it. I love St. Brown, but I want Jamar over St. Brown. So if I'm able to get Jamar, I'm getting Jamar. Do I play Matt Collins tonight in the flex over Chase Brown? I see Booty has been ruled out. Like I said, Nick, Matt Collins is one of those players that if you want to pick up and start, I think he's absolutely a guy that you can do that with. Am I benching Chase Brown for him? Probably not. I think that the value of Booty being out really elevates Matt Collins a lot, and he's proven to be very trustworthy for Drake Maye from a statistical standpoint. But I do think that Chase Brown, if Samaje Perine is still out, let's check that. If Samaje Perine is still out, he's not practicing again. So if he continues to not practice, I am starting Chase Brown. You have to make the decision about Matt Collins tonight. I think Matt Collins' floor is around 9 and his ceiling somewhere at 15, 16. Chase Brown has a floor somewhere around 9 and a ceiling of probably around 16 to 18 points as well. So dealer's choice on which one you want to go with. Big brain move says Matt Collins. Safer move says Chase Brown in a matchup that can be exploitable. So I think ultimately they're ending up in the same kind of framework for me. But just understand that Maye can absolutely decide not to use him and just pass it to Mario Douglas. With Chase Brown, they're going to use Chase Brown. So he's going to get volume in some capacity, whereas Matt Collins is not necessarily guaranteed volume. So that's kind of the other choice you have to make for yourself. Ken, would you trade away Kyron and JMO for Josh Jacobs? I have Javonte Williams, Woody Marks, Corum as my other running backs. My wide receivers are JSN, Lamb.
Bob, you gonna do it or not?
And Franklin.
I'm not giving up Kyron for Jacobs.
Well, the problem is Kyron and Jacobs, from a points perspective, aren't very far apart from one another.
That's why I'd rather have Kyron.
So if I get the extra boost of JMO and I can decide between JMO, QJ, and Franklin on a weekly basis, I understand the idea of trimming the fat here. But I don't think I think that if I'm trading Kyron and JMO, that I don't know. I think it's a good trade. I do love Josh Jacobs. But I don't know if I'm trading JMO with the way that Dan Campbell wants to use JMO now that he's taken over play calling duties. I am more inclined to trade Kyron and Franklin or Kyron and QJ for Jacobs, but I understand why people wouldn't want to accept that. Would you do Swift, Tet, and either one of Pearsall, BTJ, and Tracy for Bijan? Yeah. Here's the thing. Tet is one of those guys that is going to get between 8 to 14 points in a week. Swift has a floor of around 8 with a ceiling in the 20s. And Pearsall, we don't know what his true value is. Tracy, who knows what that value is going to be moving forward. I wouldn't move BTJ. But Bijan is absolutely a guy that I want to go after. But just understand that you very much might be disappointed by this trade, depending on, looking at recent usage rates and recent game scripts. You may be disappointed by it if they continue to use him as a wide receiver and they pull out Tyler Algier and Tyler Algiers as a running back. So while I say that I think it's fair that you do it because I don't think that the matchups for Swift in the fantasy playoffs are great, I think that I would do this. And if they wanted to take Swift, McMillan, and Tyrone Tracy for Bijan, I'd absolutely propose it. I don't think they'd accept that, though. I don't think they'd accept it, but I'd think about it. Michael, yeah, and that's fair. I mean, your assumption about that is absolutely fair. Like I said, he's not a player that I'm definitely going to say is the guy that I want to rely on in a trade for Genty. But I think that, like I said, If he gets the usage, he's going to be good. The other problem is that he has a huge injuries history. Okay.
Yes.
So if he stays healthy, you're looking at good games.
It's not likely.
You're looking at 16-point games if he's able to get in the end zone because Jordan Mason, but right now my concern, along with the health of Aaron Jones, is the scope of this offense. Is that once you saw Carson Wentz get hurt, the offensive skill values have chugged down. Now JJ McCarthy's playing very poorly, and now you're not even.
You might not even offside 8 times.
You might not even get that red zone touchdown that Aaron Jones is want to do. So that is my general concern about Aaron Jones when you're trading a player. You don't necessarily need him. Would you trade Rome and
Flowers? Would you trade Rome and Flowers for Buka? Yeah, give me Buka all day.
Yes,
give me
Bryce.
all day. No doubt.
I can give you many reasons why, but yes. Aaron Jones.
We're a quick hit zone, Bob. We got to pick this up.
I doubt Kamara overnight for a second-round pick, as I don't need him. I think that's fine. I think that dealing Kamara in a dynasty league for a second-round pick is a great play. If you do this trade, Bryce, and you have Buka, Puka, Diggs, Dobbs, and Troy, and Genty, Henderson, and Woody, I think that you're going to be fine. I think that there's going to be games that you lose. There's going to be matchups that you lose. But in totality, I think that this team is going to score a good amount of points. I would watch that Dobbs injury because he is one of my guys. Quick hits, Sharps and Ridley for Warren in Dynasty. I would. Ridley's value is.
I would definitely take Warren because Ridley's on his way out.
Ridley's value is next to dirt right now, and Sharps, unless he gets traded, his value is going to stay pretty much the same.
That's right for. I'm doing that. I'm doing that.
Yeah, family. I do that. Easy. Last week, someone in my 12-team redraft league offered me Alvin Kamara for Zach Charbonnet. Based on Kamara's seemingly dwindling uses, I turned it down quick. Did I make a mistake? I don't think you made a mistake at all. This is the thing about Kamara, right? Is that Kamara will have value if they utilize him in the capacity that they need to. They showed that they could, but I don't think you need him. I don't think there's much disparity or difference between the daily or the weekly point totals that you're going to get out of Sharps and that you're going to get out of Kamara. Both have their pitfalls. Sharps is more likely to get a touchdown than Kamara, so I go with the guy more likely to get the touchdown in that respect. So it's Monty.
It's Monty really easy. We talked earlier in the show, which you can go back about why Jacoby Myers should not be a start for the next 2 weeks. So it's pretty much Monty by default.
Yeah, and Nick, we touched on this earlier. I wouldn't. I like that people's heads are looking at this, Nick, but I wouldn't because I'm not sure about that volume. But if you're willing to risk it for the biscuit, that's the type of start that can win you the week. That's the type of start that can win you the week. If he falls into the end zone on 6 receptions, you are absolutely going to be winning your week because you are playing with fire at that point in time. But I think it's a heads up play, but I think that Jace Brown is a little bit safer. If you were to trade away Genty, who would you try to get back? I'm looking for running back upgrades. So Adam, I saw in the chat that we were talking about this a little bit earlier. I like the trade of Kyron and CD for St. Brown and Genty. If I don't want to, and you said Aaron Jones and Henderson for Genty, I don't like that one. I like the idea of going out there and getting players back that are going to be productive, and you're not going to have to worry about them. Kyron and CD is super productive. I value Kyron a magnitude better than Genty right now because of the touchdown upside that he has. But it's something to kind of look at, right? If I'm trading Genty straight, I think Genty straight, it's hard to value running back straight up. Nobody's going to straight up trade you Genty for a high profile guy. You're always going to have to put in a little extra juice. And I think that St. Brown trade is one that I would do because you're not losing on the CD side of things. They already had their bye. You didn't need that bye. The matchups are going to be good enough. I think it's easy to rely on that CD side of things.
And we love everyone for watching and being with us here today. Make sure you click like and subscribe and use that
Nick, we will. We absolutely will, Nick. We absolutely will. Half PPR. If all these guys are active and able to play on Sunday, who would you start at flex? Dalton Schultz, Trey Benson, Ricky Pearsall, Darius Slayton, or Colston Lovelet. So if I am ranking these guys in terms of the order that I would want to start them in my flex position, if they were playing. I am seeing that Trey Benson is still marked as out, but if he's playing, I have Trey Benson.
Benson's the first one easily. Then
I have Trey Benson at the top of that list, followed by Darius Slayton, then Dalton Schultz, then Ricky Pearsall. Last is Colston Loveland. And we can talk about that more if you'd like. But I think Trey Benson, if he's playing, is a guy that I want to start. I'd be concerned how they get him motivated to get a full complement of carries. Darius Slayton with Jameis Winston's great. Dalton Schultz is solid. Ricky Pearsall, unknown at this point in time. Otten or Fannin at tight end, and JMO, Addison, Harvey, or White at the flex. I like Harvey at the flex. There's a lot of reasons to like Jameson Williams. Overall, like I said about coach speak, that's very important in telling when the head coach who is now calling plays says, hey, we're going to do this. Now, the problem is Quinion Mitchell could be on him a decent amount in that game, and that could worry you. He could be erased. Addison with the target share is probably going to be good, but it's going to be a little bit of a hard start. And even though the matchup for Harvey isn't great, he's going to get the majority of those carries and the majority of those targets. So for me, it'd be Otten and Harvey, but I could see a reason and a pathway for you to want to start Fannin. I like Fannin a lot as well, but I think that I just value Otten a little bit more than Fannin this week, especially with Fannin dealing with that injury and Njoku getting that weird touchdown. If Otten gets a touchdown, it's not going to be another tight end getting that touchdown. So I value Otten just slightly a little bit more this week. Otten and Harvey a little bit more. Steve, don't mean to ask again. I guess I wasn't around. Flex, Worthy, Franklin, or Parker Washington?
Probably Parker.
That's a tough one. And it's tough because the usages are very much varied between those two players. We haven't seen a game where Xavier Worthy has gotten, those super long downfield targets like we wanted him to. But over the last several weeks, and especially since Rashee Rice came back, you're looking at 4 targets, 7 targets, and 6 targets. So he's getting enough targets, but they're not super valuable right now. Franklin is getting a lot of targets, but he also was the cause for an interception last week. So you got to ask, how long are they going to keep hyper targeting him when he's not connecting? It's a tougher matchup against Kansas City as well. Parker Washington has the better matchup, but also he's dealing with that injury. So I think I'd land on Worthy because he's not injured. And I always have that with me, that if you give all of these guys the same amount of targets, Worthy is a playmaker. But Franklin, if you give him the same amount of targets, he's going to make some plays, but I think I land on Worthy over that. And I think, Joe, you're on Parker Washington, and that's fair. We buy Standard League start 2, Kyren, Trevion, and Gibbs. Ooh.
Well, obviously Gibbs.
Oh.
You're starting Gibbs. I would go Gibbs to Kyren and avoid the Vrabel red shoes.
Matchups say that Kyren and Henderson would be the play that you want this week. But I could never forgive myself if Gibbs goes off for 40 points and I have Trevion Henderson in my lineup. So it's Gibbs and
you can't do it. It's not doable
for me. Matchups say that Kyren and Trevion have the best matchups. Gibbs is still projected for more points.
The answer we buy homes is figure out how to get one of them in your flex.
Mm-hmm. Start 2 wide receivers and 1 flex. So if I would bench Higgins here and put Henderson, assuming this is the same team and Henderson is on this list, I am going Jettis, Rice, and Higgins over Mbuka. Hard disagree. This is for me.
You hate Mbuka, or you hate that I hate Mbuka.
This is for me, Rice and Mbuka at my wide receiver position. I understand Jefferson's going to project decently well, but I think that Mbuka is at this point in time, could absolutely destroy Buffalo. Buffalo does not have a good defense. So this is Rice and Mbuka.
It's probably going to be a shootout.
This is Rice and Mbuka for me. And again, I think the value, Higgins had a good amount of touchdown, or like a good amount of yardage equity, etc., versus the Steelers last time. 10 targets, 6 receptions, 1 touchdown. He hasn't like eclipsed that number. Against Chicago, he did. So for me, I still am sitting Trevion Henderson, even though Trevion Henderson has a really good matchup. And for me, this is Kyron Gibbs. This is Kyron Gibbs, Rice, Higgins, and Igbuka. That's what I have to land on there. KJ, let's get back to KJ's question.
We got to pick this up.
Joe, let's get back to KJ's deep dive and quick hit before we started. Hit Jesse's as well. And then we'll go through the questions that we have. Deep dive here for KJ. I need to start 2 running backs in 1 flex. Henderson, Harvey, Sharps, Vidal, or Watson, full PPR. So I think Harvey, like I said earlier, and like we've been alluding at for most of the show, Harvey is in a spot right now that if you want Harvey to be successful and you are projecting that he's going to be the starting running back for Denver moving forward, that Harvey is the guy that you have to put in your lineup. Yes,
how do you not project that, Bob?
What?
He is. There's not another quality running back on that team.
But I'm saying the matchup again. The matchup against
Kansas City. Algebra problems given. That's a given. RJ Harvey's starter for Denver.
Well, so the thing to kind of think about here with Harvey, for example, right, is that when we look at running backs against Kansas City is strictly, they're not allowing a lot of yards to running backs. They're allowing around 17 carries, but it's not going to be split. And they're allowing around 4 targets a game. This matchup isn't great, but he should get the majority of the shares and is explosive. So I do tend to lean into that. Now, when we look at a guy like Charbonnet, for example, Charbonnet is in that split backfield again. This continues to be a problem for Charbonnet, right? Now, when we look at Sharps' matchup on paper, the Rams are only allowing over the course of the last 4 games around, and this is going to blow some people's minds here, right? 18 rushing attempts. Now, this is going to be split. This is going to be split. They also are allowing around 7 targets to running backs as well. Now, you can go back in and look at all the running backs that they faced, and you're going to see why that is the way it is.
Because they were also winning. The Reds are a very good team.
Over the totality of the season, they're allowing around 20 rushing attempts to running backs with around 87 yards, but they're not allowing a lot of touchdowns. Now, this matchup, while on paper it might not look great for a guy like Zach Charbonnet, it's a matchup that favors downhill running. So Zach Charbonnet is their downhill runner, and Ken Walker is not, but Ken Walker will get more receptions. So there's a lot of things to think about with Sharps. Now with Vidal had a stinker against Tennessee, a great game against the Steelers. So who would have thought that walking into a couple weeks ago, right? They look like they're going to have to continue to utilize the run in order to win these games. Now, Vidal is in a matchup that he should be able to do well against. It's not a matchup where the Jaguars are not generating pressure. They're offering around 20 total rushing attempts on the course of the year, offering a little bit in the passing game, not a lot of touchdowns either, but the rushing attempts will be there. So if Vidal gets the majority of these carries, which he should get, Vidal is a great start this week because of the potential volume. We got locked into that against Tennessee too, KJ. But again, with the way they picked up Jennings as well for their offensive line, with him being on there should be enough that they could generate some movement. They did against the Steelers. I trust that they can do it in this matchup as well. Henderson, if he gets the full complement of snaps like they're saying he should, I don't trust that. But if they're saying that he should, there is around 24 total rushing attempts to go around for the running backs in the Patriots running back room. And if those running backs are just Trevion Henderson and Terrell Jennings, and there are 24 rush attempts to go around, if you can get 12 rushing attempts out of Henderson, I think that he's going to turn out a great game. Christian Watson, not on the level. of these other players right now,
No,
especially when Love is afraid to throw the ball. So for me, this is Henderson, Harvey, and Vidal. Yep. If you decide that you want to start Sharps and you don't want to start Harvey because it's a worse matchup, I wouldn't hold it against you. But just understand that's split. Harvey's probably not going to be splitting that much with Tyler Beatty. He could.
But he also have the chance that the Rams score too much and they can't. Sharps has more risk than Vidal.
I agree with that. Picked up McPherson off of waivers for my kicker. Little, Boswell, Fairbairn, and Santos are available in my league. Who's the best kicker option to roll with this week? When it comes to just like scoring this week, I think it's fair.
Fairbairn's out.
Fairbairn is out. Yeah, he's not playing. It's Matthew Wright that's going to play. I think that when you look at it, Steelers, Boswell, check and make sure there's no rain or wind, but Boswell's always a great start in my book. Looking at Cairo Santos, not really worth it for me. I'm not starting him. McPherson is good enough. Cam Little, I know Cam Little has had 2 great weeks in a row. They're facing off against the Chargers, which should lead to a couple of kicks for Jacksonville for sure. I think that Boswell probably projects better for some extra points, but there's no reason why the Steelers won't just sputter and he gets a couple of field goals against the Bengals as well. So I'd land on Boswell, but I can understand why you'd want to start the other guys. Jesse, this was a question before the show started. We're just getting into some of those. We're backtracking a little bit. We wanted to catch a lot of those.
We're bouncing around, baby.
This is Stafford. This is Stafford for me. And I understand that Knicks can get 40 points, 30 points, but this is Stafford for me.
They're not letting Knicks play because Knicks, again, I said this on Monday, and this is still the case. They have a chance of winning that division, and they are not letting Knicks throw that chance away. That's the end of the story. So as a result, Harvey is much more inclined in my book, much more love, and there's a lot less Knicks support. Stafford, on the other hand, is throwing it like crazy to go get his
Stafford has done
talent with the Super Bowl ring.
And the stat you want is what I said to you guys last week that we would check on, or that I said on Monday that we would check on today. What were across the totality of the season, how many pass attempts these teams have let out. Seattle on the totality of the season, 37 total pass attempts a game. Over the last 4 games, Seattle has 37 pass attempts per game. And if you take it through the last 10 games, which is the whole season, 37 total passing attempts with 24 completions. That's top 5 in the league. Okay, top 2. The only one that's worse is the Steelers, and that's a Joe Flacco matchup. So there's no reason to not start Matthew Stafford this week. He has given you no reason to say, I don't want to start him. And when we go to this question, start one between Franklin, Watson, and QJ. Like I said earlier about all of these wide receivers, they all have their kind of concerns from just a play standpoint. But I think
that QJ for everything I just said about Knicks.
Yeah, I like I was going to say, I ultimately think that you can land on QJ depending on, with the profile of players. Like a lot of websites list QJ as like a wide receiver 3, but like it's not really that. That's not the way that should be listed. So I think that QJ is a good start this week. Franklin's target share is tough to sit, but also it's a more difficult matchup. So I think it's QJ all the way for me there. And this is a really good one, Jonathan, before we get back into some of the questions that have come a little bit later. We are local football flavor guys. We answer all the questions that come in. So sit tight. Watch the show. You'll get a lot of information from people in our chat and from us as well. If you want to watch us on replay,
like and subscribe, hey.
Start one, Flacco or Mahomes. Also start one, Sutton, Wandale, Tracy, or Sharps. I don't like that flex position right now, but we'll talk about that in a moment. I think I'm starting Flacco. I don't like benching Joe Flacco in a game where Cincinnati is if they're going to win it like they won it last time, they're going to continue to pass the ball. But I also believe that at some point in time,
yes, they are.
I have to believe that at some point in time, Mike Tomlin is going to say, like, what are we doing? He hasn't said it yet, But I do think that Joe Flacco is a phenomenal start this week. And it's really difficult to say to not start Patrick Mahomes. But the thing to look at here is Denver as a team. Denver has not let up a lot of passing touchdowns this season. And in the last 4 games, on average, they're letting up about 1 per game. On the totality of this season, Denver has let up 8 passing touchdowns. That is one of the lowest in the league. And the Steelers have allowed for 15.
A lot. They might have allowed 8 last time they played Cincinnati.
So while Mahomes while this game could go back and forth and favor a matchup where Mahomes gets 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, throws for 300 yards, you can absolutely see that as a stat line for Patrick Mahomes this week. And that's going to suck if that's on your bench. But I think Flacco is also likely to have 285 yards, 4 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, something like that. So I don't think that either of these guys are a bad start, and I think you're going to get a good game out of both of these guys, but I favor Flacco a little bit more because the matchup is better. And that's the long and short of that one. Let's go back down here, Joe, as we get into some of these other questions. Nick, hopefully we got you on your question. If we didn't, just make sure you put it in the chat. Kate Otten or Ferguson this week? I'm still on Ferguson this week. I understand that the volume it wasn't heading for Ferguson's way recently. But again, I don't think that Ferguson is – I understand that the Raiders have played to tight end well over the course of the season. I get that, and I get that they're only allowing 9 points a game to tight ends over the course of the season. But again, you got to think the one game was against Evan Ingram, and Evan Ingram didn't get anything. So it's also a stat to say like, oh, some of these teams don't have a tight end and they weren't used very well. And when a team has a good tight end, you're going to use them. And I think Ferguson will be used in this game. Kate Otten's a great start too, KJ. So, I mean, I think you're at a good point here. When we look at the numbers from this week, you're not going to find much variance between the two. Ferguson's projecting for around 13, and Otten is in there at 9 against the number one defense against tight ends. But again, that really depends on who they're playing. I'm still on Ferguson. Quincy, I have 3 QBs on the roster with Lamar, Jayden Daniels, and Purdy. I want to drop Purdy. Which one am I grabbing, Coleman or Mac Hollins? You know what I'm hearing, Quincy? I'm hearing you like Mac Hollins.
See, that's what I think I'm hearing.
So I'm dropping Purdy for Mac Hollins. And I'm not afraid to lose out on Keon Coleman.
I think Purdy's an okay cut by now.
Purdy is an okay cut, especially if you're holding on to Lamar and Jayden Daniels. Yes, Nino, the order of the questions was mixed up to get up to date. Nino, we wanted to try something new, and we're going to go back to the older stuff next week, but we want to try something new today. But
no, I don't think so. I think that keeping people with our live has been greatly beneficial, and we're
What are your thoughts on Brock Bowers as we approach the fantasy playoffs? Ken, I think that Brock Bowers is a piece that I don't – again, we talked about this in the chat last week. After that breakout game against Jacksonville, he comes down and lays a stinker against Denver. It wasn't wholly unexpected. Denver had played tight ends very well. They're not going to want to get gashed for 46 points against Brock Bowers. They were going to just try to let Trey Tucker or Genty beat them, and that's kind of what happened in the Ashton Genty bus. It was an ugly game. When you look at the matchup this week, this is a matchup that is a great matchup for Brock Bowers. I really don't have a problem with Brock Bowers going forward. And I don't really care which quarterback's throwing him the ball because they're going to throw him the ball. There's literally nothing else for them to do. There is an opportunity where they don't throw him the ball, a la Justin Fields, and they just don't throw the ball.
Yeah, but that's not going to happen.
I don't see that as being a thing that will happen. So I do have Brock Bowers pretty high in my kind of just rest of season rankings. But if I wanted to trade him, I could.
Retires.
If I wanted to trade him, I could. Start one tight end this week. Theo Johnson, probably starting Robinson already. Njoku or Musgrove. I think you got to be on Theo Johnson. Winston, if Winston's chucking the rock around, that's going to lead to at least 28 to 30 passing attempts. And Theo Johnson is going to be a beneficiary of those passing attempts. Njoku's not getting the volume. Musgrave's not getting the volume. You have to lean into Theo Johnson. I know it's weird starting 2 Giants, but I think it's fair. Donta, what defense would we stash for the playoffs? Honestly, if you have the luxury to stash a defense, like we said earlier, the Bucs and Philly aren't bad. Saints are a wild card. And Joe doesn't like the
That's
Saints.
pretty much the answer there.
Yeah, I understand it. Jason, start one. Bo Nix, Rodgers, Purdy with my Ricky stack. Geno, Mariota, Brissett. I don't think you can start Purdy. Like I said, Bo Nix in comeback mode is interesting enough for me this week. But I think
I'm probably going Rodgers in a shootout or Brissett.
Yeah, I think that Jacoby Brissett against this San Francisco's defense isn't great, guys. When we look at, just to give you a little bit more about Jacoby Brissett and just San Francisco's defense in general, Joe, when we look at pass attempts, San Francisco is 4th over the entirety of the season in pass attempts offered to teams. In the last 4 games, they're also 4th, okay, in total, right? They're offering around 34 pass attempts per game. There's no reason for Jacoby Brissett. Now, the only thing against Jacoby Brissett that is Jacoby Brissett's knock is Marvin Harrison got his appendix out. He is not playing. So with Marvin Harrison not playing, that's a knock to overall Brissett's total yardage potential. But I don't think that Brissett or Rodgers is an interminably bad play or a very different play from Bo Nix. And I think that Bo Nix does have a ceiling this week, but his floor is similar to all of these other quarterbacks' floor. You just have to say, will he hit that ceiling? And I'm not really sure. So for me, it's either Rodgers or Brissett. I'd probably land on Rodgers, knowing that Cincinnati's defense can't stop anybody. They didn't stop Justin Fields, so that's saying something. Jason, would you trade Vidal? I have Hampton and Tet for any of these running backs. Hall, Judkins, Warren, and Henry. If I could trade Vidal and Tet for Derrick Henry right now, yeah, I'd do it. I'd do that all day, every day.
Yeah.
But I also understand that Vidal and Henry could have similar stat lines for the totality of the season as long as they're playing. But if I have Hampton, I'm not worried about the production from Vidal, and I'm getting that from Henry. Yes, absolutely. I'm going out there and getting Derrick Henry. I think he's the best of the bunch. My running backs would be Hampton, Rico, Kamara, Pollard, White. Yeah, and I think it's fair. Moving into Derrick Henry, I like that a lot. Start one, Rodgers, Mariota, Geno, Brissett, Tua. Tua's not on my radar this week. Like I said, Brissett's kind of like a go big or go home play. I think he's going to be productive, but the loss of Marvin Harrison Jr. does play a role into how people value him this week. And Rodgers is going to perform as adequately as Aaron Rodgers can do in a potential shootout. So I think it's safe to say that Brissett and Rodgers for me are the 2 guys that I'd land on. I'm not sure yet which one. I would tend to lean Rodgers over Brissett because of the missing. But I'd watch DK because DK was dealing with a little bit of an injury too. I got the Pats defense and special teams tonight. Hope they go off. I don't see a reason why they shouldn't. They're playing a really poor team. So for me, I wouldn't be worried about that. Start 4 this week, Jason, assuming you don't trade Vidal. Ricky, if he's back, is in there. Vidal, White, Ricky, Shakir, Tet, already starting Rico in a bad matchup, and Wan'Dale Robinson already starting Theo Johnson. So it's Vidal. Vidal's absolutely starting. We talked to you a little bit about how Rachaad White is a more difficult play because of the way Sean Tucker has been assuming some carries from him. And the thing is that overall running backs, Buffalo hasn't played running backs very well over the course of the year. In the last 4 games, they've been offered 24 rushing attempts to running backs, and that includes some matchups that have been a little bit better, a little bit worse. Over the totality of the season, they're offering about 21 rushing attempts. If you're getting Rachaad White with around 14 rushing attempts, and you're also getting about 5 receptions from him or somewhere in there, yeah, he could throw out a very pedestrian game, but it's a matchup that can be taken advantage of. And if you believe that the Buccaneers are going to hold a lead at any point in time in that game, Sean Tucker and Rachaad White are going to be valuable. So my next start would be Rachaad White. Then you go down this pipeline here of Shakir. Shakir's dealing with an injury, but the matchup's great. So for me, I'm on Shakir. Shakir is a reliable threat. He's nothing special. He could fall into the end zone, and that's fair enough. So then it comes down to Ricky Robinson. Joe, how do you feel on this last one? Where are you landing at?
The last one would look. I'm going Wan'Dale. I mean, you gotta go with Wan'Dale as one of your 4 because again, JMO. White and Vidal.
And
Yeah,
Shakir.
I mean, you remember that.
I think that's it.
That's the right answer.
I traded Woody Marks and Hunter Henry for Kittle. Thoughts? I don't think it's a phenomenal trade, but it elevates your weekly tight end for sure. Because Kittle is always a threat to get 2 touchdowns in an offense that's piloted by Brock Purdy. It does make your running back room have less depth, but with Hampton and Tracy there, I'm not too worried about losing Woody Marks. So I think you did good. And getting rid of Hunter Henry, that's fine. Hunter Henry and Woody Marks for Kittle. We had another person up in the chat. I don't remember who it was that was thinking about, like, what is the trade for Kittle? We talked about potential values for Kittle. A running back and a tight end in return. People always, if they're trading a tight end, people always want to get a tight end back unless they already have a starting tight end on the roster that's good. I traded Kamara, my running back 5, and Tet in another league here for Ladd and Shakir. Love that. I think that for you takes the bacon. I don't need Tet on my team if I have Rico, and having Ladd and Shakir over Kamara and Tet, I think is light years better for this team. When I look at your team now and I can start Ladd at my wide receiver 2, flex Rico, I have Pittman, Shakir, and DJ Moore on my bench, and I can flip flop between how I view those guys. Yeah, I think that's perfect. Joe, how do you feel about that? How do you feel about that, Joe?
I agree, Bob. You're totally on, but you're just hitting a zone, man.
This is your team
rushing. You're hitting a zone, man. Hit that hole hard.
This is your team from earlier, Quincy. 10-0, CMC, Chase Brown, Henderson, Harvey, Swift, Benson. Yeah, if I have CMC and Chase Brown and Henderson and Harvey, you absolutely do not need Swift and Benson. So moving Swift and Benson plus Igbuka to get Jamar on your team, and then you're rolling out Rice, Jamar, and Alec Pierce. Yeah. I have no problem with that whatsoever until Garrett Wilson comes back, because Alec Pierce is a good enough play on a week-to-week basis. He's getting the targets. I want Jamar. Enough said about that. I definitely want Jamar.
Yeah,
and having Flacco there to boot is nice. Hunter Henry, by the way, for the Kittle trade, not Derrick Henry. Yeah, Jason, I got that. Hunter Henry. People always want to get a tight end back. The Chris, how's it going, man? Quick hit, choose to start. Travion, Aaron Jones, Diggs, or Rachaad White. Travion Henderson is the start out of this group of guys.
Yep.
Assuming he gets all the volume. Diggs is another interesting one for me, Joe. Projectably, Diggs is always kind of
go 2 Thursday night players.
Diggs is always a solid enough play, but there is that kind of mental gymnastics that you have to pull, that you don't want to start 2 Thursday night players, especially 2 Thursday night players in a game that could potentially be low scoring. Diggs is projecting around 14 points. And Diggs can fall anywhere within that projection. He has not had a game lower than 10 points since they faced New Orleans. So he's been there. And with Booty out, I still think that Diggs is a better play than Aaron Jones. And I still think Diggs is a good play juxtaposed to Rachaad White. So for me, I would start 2 Thursday players, but it would suck if this game really sucks like last week's game and you just kind of just like suck at it. But here's the other thing. If you don't want to start Diggs and you want to start Aaron Jones, the matchup is good enough this week that if he gets the majority of the carries, he's going to have a good game. So Travion and Aaron Jones, if you don't want to start 2 players on Thursday night, but just know with Booty out, Diggs is probably going to have another good game in there. Rashi Rice. Patrick, my team is Allen Maye, Lamb, Tet, Ladd, Slayton, Javonte, DeMarcado, Jones, Mason, Benson, Tootin, Davis on the bench. I don't think this is a bad team.
I don't think it's a bad team either.
I really don't think it's a bad team. But where I see that you need to really elevate is that running back room. So for me, I'd be moving Tet in a heartbeat. Even for you, I'd move one of the quarterbacks. I'm okay keeping Drake.
You don't need both of them.
I'm okay, assuming this isn't a 2 quarterback start, Patrick. I'm okay moving Josh Allen and Tet to order to elevate my running back room, because I don't know how survivable that those running backs will be coming down the stretch. So move Tet, move Allen, Get back a running back, get back a wide receiver, get back what you need to get back for that. But I think that that's what I would do. Even with me having Pickens right now, would you do that deal if it was CD instead of Rashid?
Yes.
So Nino, let's go up to the top of that deal again, so that I can see where it's going. Joe, can you pull up that deal? If it was CD instead of Rashid. Yeah. I would do that. I would be more inclined to do that deal if it was CD and not Rashid. Yeah, I would. Because that deal was Josh Allen and JMO for Caleb and CD. Yeah, I think that you're getting back a little bit more in there. But I understand the trepidation of not wanting to own 2 Dallas Cowboys if they potentially want to tank it. So I do like CD. I value CD a little bit higher than Rashid.
Can't do the trades they did and they want to trade. How the hell are we still 45 minutes behind?
I do think that. Reichert or Pinheiro rest of season. Nick, you know I love kicker questions. And I do think that both of these kickers are going to have problems moving forward. But I think you could lean a little bit into Reichert right now because JJ McCarthy is proving that he could throw the ball into the end zone. So I still think you should do that. Hamza, would you trade Gibbs and Shakir for Genti and Igbuka? I wouldn't. If I want to go out, and here's the thing, you're already guaranteed a playoff spot, so you're preparing your team for the stretch run. You're preparing your team for these playoff matchups. Once you hit the playoffs, you're running up against the Eagles, the Texans, and the Giants. The Giants in Week 17 is going to be a great matchup for Ashton Genti if you get there. Okay, I'd have to really know your other running backs, Hamza, because I see you put that in there a couple of times. But I do think that I wouldn't do this, but I do want to get Igbuka. So if I could still try to get Igbuka, I would want to get Igbuka, but I wouldn't do this trade necessarily. And I think Joe would agree that it's not a good idea to trade off of Jahmyr Gibbs.
That's
Jesse,
exactly right. You're not trade Gibbs.
Start one between Rice, Addison, Franklin, and Jennings. I think you still start Rice. Start Rice. The matchup, again, I don't believe that Surtain is playing. I'd have to check it again, and he's not. I still start Rice, and I think he's going to be fine. The next one up for me would be Jennings. The next one up for me would be Jennings. Okay, with my team above, trade Javonte, Aaron Jones, Benson, Isaiah Davis, and Ladd for Kyron, Henderson, Corum, Swift, and Pittman.
That trade should never be accepted, but I would do it. I would try it.
I would do it knowing that I'm getting back 3 better running backs than I'm giving up. I'm getting back 4 better running backs than I'm giving up. I do like Javonte Williams, and I'm getting back a lesser wide receiver. But just understand, I do think Javonte Williams is great in terms of fantasy. I don't think he's great as a player, but I think right now in fantasy this year,
the side that's getting Kyron is this.
I like the Kyron side better, Patrick. I like the Kyron side better.
Close.
I need a wide receiver 2, Mac, and a flex to play this week. I have A.J. Brown, Stephon Diggs, Judkins, and DK. Well, I'm starting Judkins out of that grouping of players. Judkins is a guy that I think even though the offense is doing poor, Baltimore is a team that probably will rack up the score, and Judkins might be useless later in the game, but I still think they give him 15 to 22 carries. A.J. Brown is unreliable right now, which sucks.
Yes, he is.
Stephon Diggs would be a start for me this week out of your players. So right now, I think it'd be Stephon Diggs and Judkins because I see that Judkins and DK and A.J. Brown all within the same grouping of players that if they get the volume, they're going to be good. If they don't get the volume, it's going to be a terrible week. So you kind of have to take it from that perspective. What?
You got to jump back into quick hitter mode. We're still 45 minutes behind on this.
Got to take that into perspective. Chris, Diggs or Chase Brown is my flex. Full PPR. I'm also playing Maye, Trevion tonight. If that changes anything, it changes a little bit, but you start your best players. If you think the matchup for the Steelers is going to be great, you start Chase Brown. Diggs is going to have a good game. Like I said, I think he projects no lower than 10 points this week. And I think Chase Brown projects no lower than 10 points this week. So where do you see the ceiling at? Chase Brown most likely won't score a touchdown. Diggs can score a touchdown. So maybe you lean a little bit into the Diggs side, but just know it would really suck having, not that much motivation going into the week. So I'm on Chase Brown out of that. I think Joe would technically agree with that.
Not technically, I would.
Gadsden or Bowers this week, Joe? Bowers,
he's the whole offense, and there's no other choice. It's Bowers.
Bowers projects better against a team that hasn't stopped the tight end yet. So I think it's Bowers for me. When I look at here, Likely or Fannin, again, Isaiah Likely is one of my boys. You know that, Jesse, but the volume just isn't there yet. It's going to come.
That's right.
But I think you got to land on Fannin because the volume is already there. Having Ladd play your wide receiver 1, Mac. Okay, that's fine. Yeah. I still think I'm on Diggs and Judkins out of that grouping of guys. Jesse, deep dive here. We'll get to that. Don't worry about it. Adam, start 2. Diggs, Kyren, Henry, Judkins. I already got Adams going on the Rams game. For me, this would be Henry for sure. Out of that grouping of players, Henry for sure. And then based off of matchups, you could probably land on Kyren in a game that's going to be hyper competitive and neither side is really going to have the edge. They're probably going to want to ball control that a little bit. So I'd land on Henry and Kyren, although I do think Diggs is a good start this week. Joe, how do you feel?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day here, it's got to be Henry and Kyren.
Do I trade Judkins and DK or Kittle for Tyler Warren? My wide receivers are CD, London, and Waddle. My running backs are Achane, Jaylen Warren, RJ, Hampton. My tight ends are Kittle and Goddard, trying to make a run in the playoffs with an elite team. Kaizen, I don't think this makes your team any better than it already is. I get wanting Tyler Warren. Earlier in the season, I traded Tyler Warren for Judkins and Lamar and stuff like that. But I could see where you're worried about Judkins, and I could see where you wouldn't want to start Judkins, but he's going to have good matchups. And depending on quarterback play, I don't really want to give that up. I do want to move off DK. If I could send DK and Kittle for Tyler Warren, I'd do that instead. If I could send a wide receiver and a tight end for Tyler Warren, I'd rather do that than sending Judkins. If the guy wants Judkins, I'd probably hold off a little bit. You might want to think about, you could think about Jaylen Warren, but he's on a better offense. I heard Purdy was coming back next week. No, Bones, I have not heard if he's coming back for sure this week. I just don't value him this week. Coming off that big injury, I just don't see it coming.
You're going to have to be Purdy at least 2 or 3 weeks. Just the way it is.
Christian, Dynasty, Breece Hall, Keaton Mitchell, and a mid-2026 first for J.K. Dobbins, Devonta Smith, and Quentin Johnston. I'm currently in first.
I cannot trade Devonta and QJ.
A contender. So are you getting Breece or are you getting Devonta Smith?
I need to be on the side of QJ and Devonta.
I like QJ and Devonta, but I do think Breece Hall in a mid-26 first. I don't want J.K. Dobbins on a dynasty team. That's the problem. Like the injuries are racking up on J.K.
I don't care
Dobbins.
about that. That's not an issue. I want Devonta Smith and QJ on my rosters. I know Devonta Smith's number 1 moving forward.
Yeah, I think it's fair. I think that I would lean on wanting the Devonta Smith and Quentin Johnston side right now. If I could flip flop J.K. Dobbins out of that, maybe. If you like,
they're starting to figure out how to use QJ. Like I'm there.
It's Schultz, Bones.
Yeah, it is Schultz.
And Joe, just before I get back into quick hit mode here, this is the reason why it's Schultz. Schultz might miss week 11. So if Schultz is going to miss week 11, you lean into Pat Freiermuth. Okay. You don't lean in Colston Loveland. But the reason Schultz would be the play is that over the last 5 games, 6 targets, 10 targets, 3 targets, 8 targets, 11 targets.
Mills is throwing it, guys.
If he's playing, he's the guy. I would tend to lean Freiermuth if Schultz was out. I have Warren on the bye this week, and Laporta hasn't practiced. Who would you pick up and start out of Theo Johnson, Ertz, Otton, and Hawkinson? I'm on Theo Johnson and Otton out of the 2 for various reasons. Theo Johnson's getting lucky in that touchdown department. Otton hasn't got there yet. But in a game that projects that Jameis Winston could pass for a lot, Theo Johnson's worth starting.
It's the Jameis Winston effect is real, guys.
Michael, it's going good, man. I'm glad it's going okay over there. I wish I got a lot of sleep last night, so that was nice. I went to sleep at like 10 o'clock. I don't normally do that. Got Drake Maye going tonight, plus the Patriots. Unfortunately, I have no Amazon Prime, but then realized it's the Jets and I'm in Jersey, so it should be on TV. That'd be nice for you. The Amazon Prime games are kind of weird for me as well. Worthy on waivers. Is he a pickup? I have Rice. Hey, Jesse, if you want to pick him up, I don't see a reason why you shouldn't or why he shouldn't be picked up. He hasn't been productive. He hasn't been productive, but I do think that, like stashing him, if you have the room to stash him, is going to be worth it. Titan, trying to get Bucky.
Oh, before he was getting Devontae. Do that trade, man.
Oh, yeah. If I'm getting Devontae, I'm doing that. Titan, trying to get Bucky off the guy who has to win out to make the playoffs. This is what you want to do. I don't need him, but I'd love to add him for playoffs since I'm chilling. Was thinking of offering Swift or ETN plus JMO or Pierce. If he needs to win
I would do ETN and JMO.
If he needs to win now and you're just chilling and you don't care if you lose out on ETN and JMO would be a fair value. I would be more inclined to move Swift and JMO out of those four guys. I'd be more inclined to move Swift and JMO. But here's the other thing about Swift.
Here's my argument for keeping Swift is that Caleb Williams is going to suck in the cold and they're just going to hang the ball like crazy.
Exactly. That's what I was getting to that. So like Swift is a hold for some people, trade for some people. ETN and JMO I think is good enough for Bucky. But just understand there is a chance that Bucky might not play.
And that chance is scaring the hell out of every single one of my best ball teams.
This is very speculative. And we are big Bucky truthers. And he's phenomenal.
And you're Titan, you're entirely right. That the hellhole that is Swift is real, but so is living with Caleb Williams and having your career tied to him. He's going to give the ball to Swift instead of Caleb Williams, especially when that win starts picking up.
Ricardo, this is what happens. This is the think tank that happens. I want to just tell you guys straight up that I was on my waivers trying to figure out Mac Hollins myself. And I think Mac Hollins is just going to be fine this week. I don't think you're going to get a lightning game out of Mac Hollins, but with Booty out, the Jets suck. Mac Hollins is probably going to get 4 to 6 targets in this game, and it could end up in a touchdown. I don't think you're wrong in assuming that you want to
3. It's Thursday Night Football.
I don't think it's wrong in assuming that Mac Hollins is a good play this week. Because JJ McCarthy has been sucking, man. Like, it's a big brain move, but I think it's crazy. Rabona, how's it going, man? Have you done a show where you're looking back at all your best ball teams? We haven't done that yet, but I can tell you this.
We will.
That I have a lot in contention right now.
Me too. I know that I have more than you should just from random chance, which would be 1 out of 6.
Where I have a lot in contention at is all of those super flex leagues that we did live.
Oh God, did you love doing super flexes?
So all those super flex leagues that we did live, where I was able to get JT and Gibbs and pair him up with Matt Stafford, they're doing just fine.
Yeah, I can bet that they are.
All the best ball teams that we have with Bucky are kind of in the shitter because, we drafted Bucky pretty high. And then those teams also, some of those got paired up with Malik Neighbors. Some of them got paired up with Puka and BTJ. So some of those teams aren't as good. But if I'm being honest, we're in contention in a lot of them. Plot, I've been trouble picking between Travion and Rome in the flex. I'm on Travion.
Me too.
The reason to be on Travion over Rome. Now, Rome's projecting pretty well. Minnesota is not that great at stopping wide receivers. It is at Minnesota.
They are good at stopping their division, though.
The weather isn't going to be a factor. Outside of the Cincinnati game where he should have feasted, he's got 5 targets, 9 targets, 10 targets. So if Rome's going to get that 9 targets, he's going to have a great game. If he's going to get that 5 targets, he's going to have a shitty game. Travion is locked and loaded for at least 12 carries. So he's at least going to be touching the ball 12 times in this game. So that's kind of how I feel about that. What do I think of Rome will be healthy? Rome is dealing with the injury. He got upgraded to a limited practice this week, so he's trending on playing. Travion also is upgraded to practicing, so I think that's good. Quincy, appreciate the love, man. Love it. Thanks, Plot. Absolutely. Like, follow, subscribe if you like what we're putting out there. We appreciate everybody in the chat. We couldn't make it happen without you guys.
Love you guys.
Alex, this is my team for the rest of the season. What do you think? Drake, Maye, Henderson, Judkins, JSN, Egbuka. I like that. Emuka. McBride, JJ, the benches, Woody, Bucky. This is where this is great. I love Judkins long term. You know how I feel about Henderson. But that Woody, Bucky, Harvey, that's chef's kiss now that Dobbins is going to miss 4 games. So that I can't understate that enough. Then you have Pierce, who has been playing like a wide receiver 1. And then Wandale.
That's a good roster. I mean, that's a championship winning roster. Alex.
That is a borderline championship winning roster right there. If Drake Maye can continue to perform, which kicker would you start this week between McLaughlin and Boswell? I don't see a reason why you want to bench Boswell. Again, if the weather sucks, that's something to consider. And then McLaughlin, again, it always comes down to, I think McLaughlin and Boswell are both going to kick 50-yard field goals. It's just a matter of time of who's going to kick more 50-yard field goals and who's going to kick more 40-yard field goals.
And the answer is probably Boss, because Stewart's more likely to get stopped.
I tend to lean the Boss. So, Titan, so is Bucky. So Bucky was back at practice the other day, though. Yeah, he was back at practice. But if you remember the reports about Lamar prior to the injury, they said Lamar was back at practice, but he was practicing with the practice squad guys. And what the coach speak said prior to this was that we don't have a timetable for Bucky's return, and then he's out there practicing. So to me,
that means they're trying to figure out the timetable.
To me, that means that he's trying to figure out the timetable, and you're probably not going to see him until maybe week 13, maybe week 14. So for you, if you like that and you think that he doesn't have a high re-injury risk with the shoulder, because what I read and what I saw was that there is a chance that shoulder injury, if it's not looking good this week, that's why I said wait a couple of days for the practice, because Bucky's value isn't going to change. His value isn't going to change this week to next week. So you can do this trade next week if your trade deadline is still there. If your trade deadline is not still there and you want to make this trade this week, that's fine. But that shoulder injury, there's a chance that might need surgery. And if they're fighting for a playoff spot and they need Bucky to play, they're going to play him. But they don't want to risk a young player like Bucky's talent that's going to happen with. So if they need to give him that surgery, they're going to give him that surgery. So that's the only reason why I worry about giving potential long-term assets up. But if Etienne and JMO are the guys you're giving up, it's not that much to give up.
That's right.
As long as you're safety and secure with the guys that you had. Is Monangai a hold or a drop? He's a hold. Okay?
He's a hold.
And there are many reasons why he's a hold. But for what Joe said is that schedule, while it's not great for running backs on the back half, there's a chance that they might have to run more if that weather gets shitty. Monty, Monangai, or Spears in full PPR this week? It's Monty.
I'm going Monty this week. I'm personally riding him myself.
And Joe, here's the fun fact, right? He got same or similar volume as Jahmyr Gibbs last week in terms of the carry department. The last 3 weeks, he's got 13, 11, 15. Unfortunately, that hasn't turned into anything. But he faces a team in week 11 here in terms of Philly that he should be able to do something against. They did have an injury on the offensive line, so that does affect what Montgomery's overall value is. But I think that it's something to think about. We get running back too because I lost Scat and Hampton. Mike, it sucks, man. I remember we were floating high. We were floating high after Scatterboot's Thursday night football game, and then boom, boom, injury. That's the way life is. Are we going to like Burrow?
I'd rather have Dak in the playoffs than Burrow because I know Dak's healthy. I don't know how Burrow's going to respond. If there's a chance that Cincinnati loses here today that they basically shut Burrow down for the year.
Yeah, the matchups are good enough for Joe Burrow. Wow, the Patriots jerseys for tonight's game are pretty good. But I think that I'm on Dak. Might try to sell Dak to the Bucky owner if he needed. He has Dart, and that's it. Who's hurt? If you want to sell Dak because you're starting another quarterback and you're not starting Dak, I think it's fair that if you want to do that, you can. Like if it was Dak If it was Dak and JMO and you keep the 2 running backs, I rather like that from my side. I can understand why he wouldn't want to accept it on his side, though. Am I wrong for thinking Rachaad White is going to get like 2 points this week? He's predicted to get more points than Trevion Henderson this week. He is not going to get more points than Trevion Henderson.
He's actually going to get -2. That's what's going to happen.
Here's again. I just want to.
Rachaad White is not a good football player. He's just in a great situation.
What I want to say about Rachaad, again, the volume for the Tampa Bay running back room is good. There is going to be around 25 touches for running backs in this game total. That includes on the ground and through the air. There is a likelihood that Rachaad White can get like 12 carries, but he's not an efficient runner. So that's going to tend to lean on Sean Tucker. Last week, he got 10 carries for 38 yards. The week before, 13 carries for 35 yards. He's in that. I don't see why his projection is so high other than the matchup. I think he's probably sits in the like that 8 to 12 range and not much higher unless he gets the punches one in for the touchdown. Titan, here's the team we were talking about. Dak, Burrow, Jamar, Pickens, JMO, Pierce, Moore, Ridley, Saquon, ETN, Swift, Monangai, Vidal, Marks, Bowers in the flex, 2 flex, no tight end. You think Bucky makes sense?
Bucky always makes sense.
I do, Titan. I do think Bucky makes sense. So for me, because I do like Alec Pierce a lot, I have no problem moving JMO and then, like you said, ETN or Swift for Bucky. Because what this does for you is it slots in, and preferably actually, because you have Monangai, I would probably move Swift. I know that Swift is just as reliable at a player right now as you can get for some people. But I think that because I have Monangai, I might move Swift. It's tough because Swift is still getting 10, 12, 14, 19 carries a game, and they're going to have to utilize him. But Monangai is interesting on your team. Joe, would you rather move ETN or Swift knowing he has Monangai? And by the way, I wouldn't move the quarterback.
ETN regardless. I'd rather move ETN regardless.
So Joe's moving ETN, JMO, fair enough. Burrow is in my IR spots and not taking up space. Yeah, that's fair. I mean,
that's how he should be.
Joe
Burrow is tough. It's not that I'm doubting Joe Burrow. It's that Cincinnati is stupid.
Cincinnati is. Goff or Mahomes this week. I gave you a lot of reasons why Patrick Mahomes in catch-up mode could be very relevant this week if he happens to be in catch-up mode or if he happens to be in lead mode. Patrick Mahomes projects really well this week. He's projecting to around 20-ish points this week. When we get to Goff is down there at 15 because, again, he doesn't have to throw the ball for them to win the game, but they will win the game if he does throw the ball. So, there's a likelihood that he ends up somewhere in with 13 points, but he does have a ceiling in the 25s, like 25 to 20, like 25, 26, 27, 28, where I think Mahomes, in order for them to win that game, they have to throw the ball. So for this perspective, because Kareem Hunt's not going to go for 100 yards rushing. So in this respect, I favor Mahomes over Goff, but in the other questions, I favored the other quarterbacks over Mahomes for the reasons that I said. Barkley's pissing me off too, Titan. I've got Barkley in a league, and I thought I was going to be sitting pretty with the running backs that I was in. I think you got to hold course on a guy like Saquon Barkley, especially this week. He's projecting, decent this week in a matchup that, while it's not a great matchup for him, he's not putting up the 30 points, and that's kind of what's pissing us off, right? But we know that he has it in him. We know that he has it in him. He did it already this year. So I get where you're coming from with that. Michael, we appreciate you, man. We absolutely appreciate you. Should I start? I like that symbol, the goats. I like that. We should put that on a hat. Roman, should I start Breece or Woody Marks this week? There are a lot of people out there that are going to share and say that Breece Hall is the play over Woody Marks. I am not one of those people that.
Yeah, I'm on Woody too. I see that the Jets did nothing last week against, granted, a decent defense, but tonight, short week, and the Patriots are in the same realm.
But here's the thing. This is the thing.
9 in the box. They can't throw the ball. It's over.
This is the thing about Breece Hall, right? He got the volume. We said last week is that once Garrett Wilson goes down, there's no other player to accumulate that volume. So Breece Hall by default is a volume play this week. He faced the number 1 rush defense last week and the number 2 rush defense this week. So he's going to get volume. But the reason he scored well last week was because he caught a ball for 42 yards and a touchdown. If he hadn't, he would have had a Quinshon Judkins game, and this conversation wouldn't be taking place. And he would have had 8 points last week. So you got to ask yourself, will Woody Marks' volume lead to more touchdowns? And I absolutely think it will, because he's against a worse defense. Even though Davis Mills is starting, Davis Mills
hand the ball off more. All right, Bob, we'll use this as a stepping off point to do some of the deep dives we missed.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's do that. So Mick, currently 7-3, first place. I have Caleb, Gibbs, JT, Quinshon, Harvey, Slayton, JMO, Christian Watson, Tez, Ricky, wide receiver positions, Garrett Wilson, McBride and Gatson at my tight end. My wide receiver room is so bad. So was seeing if JT for Chase and Pittman or Lamb and Pickens. So we've talked a lot, Mick, about touchdown equity. And earlier on in the season, I can't remember who I said it to. Someone asked me, I believe it was week 3, week 4, if they should trade JT into Bijan. And I said to them, if you think that JT is going to get 15 touchdowns, he was already at 5, and you thought that Bijan was going to end up at 15, then it's okay to trade into touchdown equity that you think is going to be there perceived. But right now, it doesn't feel like JT is going to slow down. And
it doesn't. But neither is Jamar Chase. And if you can get Chase and Pittman, I think you're going to get a push and touchdown equity.
Yeah, it feels, So Gibbs isn't going to slow down, or Gibbs and JT aren't going to slow down at all. Now that Harvey is healthy and going to be the starting running back, I tend to say that I think it's okay to move JT, because all in all things considered, when you look at what JT's touchdown equity is right now, he has the highest touchdowns in the league, and that's not going to change, right? He's sitting there with a total of 15 rushing touchdowns. It is likely that he ends up somewhere at 22 rushing touchdowns. So he has a couple of weeks to get there. Jamar Chase absolutely elevates your wide receiver room. I mean, it takes it from scrubs and duds to, I'm ready for this, right? Lamb, similarly. Lamb and Pickens.
See, I don't want Pickens. When we're talking about this round, I'd rather have and the reason is Pickens and Lamb are going to fight each other for touchdowns. Chase and Pittman aren't.
That's true. But Pittman is going to run into harder matchups. And if a matchup is good for the Cowboys, I think both of the Cowboys wide receivers feast. It doesn't really change, though, how I view Chase. I think that Chase
is the one to have.
I think that Chase is still a little bit above Lamb right now at this point in the season. And if I'm moving JT and I want to get into Chase and Pittman, I think that's what I'm doing. The reason why you might not is that Pittman's schedule does project poorly moving forward. So if that schedule's projecting poorly and you believe JT can have that equity, I think that that's fair. The other way to approach it, though, here too, is you don't necessarily have to give up JT and Gibbs, Mick. If you take Pittman, or if you take one of, so if you want just Michael Pittman,
give it up Gibbs, just give it up JT.
No. I'm saying if you want Michael Pittman, I think you can get Michael Pittman with other players on your team.
I don't think he wants Pittman. I think that's just the number 2 that's plausible on the guy who has
Pittman, you can get more on your team. I like JT so much. I think that I like Jamar and Pittman more for your team, because then it clears out kind of the idea that I have to start Tez Johnson. But again, Tez Johnson has been pretty decent Ricky Pearsall, we don't know what he's going to do. Garrett Wilson's hurt. So Garrett Wilson is a non-asset. So you're starting J-Mo, Slayton, and Tez, and you're like, I need something, right? Chasing Pittman is a fair enough thing to get back. But maybe you don't ask for Pittman. Maybe you ask for a different wide receiver or a different asset back. The hang up for me is Pittman because the schedule isn't as good. Pittman had like a nice 4-week stretch where it was okay, but now it's getting a little bit dicey. And that's why I like Lamb and Pickens, because overall, if I take it from an overall perspective, I think Lamb and Pickens, even though they're on the same team, their team does score points. And for Pittman, they don't have to pass the ball to Pittman. They don't have to pass it to him. So that's kind of where I land on that. And this is the same thing there, Nick. Talk to us more about it, because I think it's a very interesting trade. Nick, any moves I need to make before the trade deadline? I'm in a 14-man PPR league. My roster is Baker and Flacco. I think that's great. Nico, Pickens, DK, Pearsall, Judy. That's fine.
Love that.
Chase Brown, Jalen Warren, Bowers, Loveland, Pinheiro. So
14 So Gentry's the one to trade, Nick. When we talked about this all offseason, you've been with us this whole time. This is the time to trade Genty right now. I would do Genty. See, it depends on when you're doing this. If you're doing this prior to this week, I would do Genty and Chase Brown, because if Chase Brown rips the Steelers apart again, I would try to upgrade both of them. And I would use Loveland as the over the top. So I would do Genty straight up for another back, and then Brown and Loveland for another back. Those are the two trades I would do. I
like Chase Brown's schedule moving forward. Your backfield. I don't think I'm moving Chase Brown off your team, but I'm definitely moving Genty. So for me, it's Genty and DK, and seeing the best running back option that I could get. And ideally, like I said, there are wide receivers on the slate that they're going to have harder schedules down the pipeline, like Pittman, where trading into them can seem like a little bit iffy. But a guy for your team that I think would really make your team better than the DK perspective is Juwan Jennings. I know you have Ricky Pearsall. I think that that's something worth thinking about. And honestly, for your team, monitor that injury to Romeo Doubs, but I think Romeo Doubs is a fine player to have. And I think that looking at that mid to lower tier wide receiver pool, because DK isn't always performing well, guys. So that's the other thing too, is that you have Nico and Pickens. If you can take DK and Genty, get a better running back, but maybe a slightly downgraded name wide receiver, because nobody likes Alec Pierce right now. But again, Alec Pierce isn't going to cost you as much, but he's performing really well. Or you can go after a guy like Shakir, who's just a constant, stable floor. I don't think that that's bad for you if you can upgrade Genty in some capacity. So that's how I feel about that. And if you don't want to move Genty, that's fair enough, because there's not much else you can move Genty into that's not comparable value. But for example, if you like Kyron a little bit more, or you like Cook a little bit more, or you want to try to buy low on Bijan, this is the time to kind of buy low on Bijan with assets that you have. And you could flip some of these assets into something like that. And we can talk about it more, but I think that that's the pathway that I think you could think about. Now, Jesse, in terms of this question here, before we get back to the chain that was that we just had, start one between Breece, Algier, and Coleman. So I gave you all the reasons why Breece Hall could be a good play this week. Breece Hall is going to lock himself into volume. This could be a gross low-scoring game. 16.
I think it's going to be. I think the Jets get 6 points.
It can happen. He's going up against the number 3 rated rush defense in the league. Detroit has overcome them in that capacity. But you look at the wide receiver room. You go in and you're like, okay, who's playing for the Jets tonight? And then you look at their wide receiver room and you're like, okay, the wide receivers playing are Tyler Johnson, Alan Lazard, Isaiah Williams, and Adonai Mitchell.
The Jets are going to
let me finish
let up 4 points or more touchdowns than they score first downs.
That is very high. That's a very high chance of happening. So if I'm sitting here and I say, okay, I want to see what's going on with Algier, right? So I look at Tyler Algier and I say, all right, they're playing against Carolina. Carolina's rush defense has been surprisingly more stout. The Falcons considered Algier a superstar. That was in a recent interview. There is a chance that Algier will zero you out this week. He had a great game last week because he had 2 touchdowns. But there is a chance that he will zero you out or get 5 points. I don't think he's locked and loaded for 2 touchdowns. Coleman, on the other hand, is a wild card, complete wild card in this discussion. So I think that you got to think more about these 2 running backs. If you're going volume, you go Breece Hall. Breece Hall is going to get more volume in a worse matchup, but you got to ask yourself, do you want to start a running back on a team that is projected to lose? Atlanta is projected to do better. Carolina, again, not a great team, but not their defense has been better than their offense this year. And you ask yourself,
I just think after Buffalo got destroyed and embarrassed, I'm rolling the dice on all Bills. I think that there's just something about a good team after they get embarrassed, they blow someone out.
That's fair. I'm on Breece. Here's why. They're going to be losing. The guys I just mentioned catching the ball. Who? Adonai Mitchell. Yeah, but Breece Hall, they might not get a first down in the second half of this game. But Breece Hall is very likely to eclipse Tyler Algier and Keon Coleman's target share.
Probably.
In 3 drives. So for me, it's Breece Hall because it is dedicated volume no matter which way you slice the dice. New England, great at stopping the rush, but because teams play behind, they're going to have to catch the ball more. Hey, by the way, who's good at catching the ball more? Breece Hall. So Breece Hall is the answer to that question. And I don't think you can consider Algier over Breece or over Coleman, despite Algier's 2-touchdown game last week. So let's get back into these questions here, guys. Superflex Dynasty, 10-man league. My roster highlight players are Hurst, Mahomes, Hall, Gibbs, Henderson, Tootin, Neighbors, Devontae Adams, Odunze, A.J. Brown, Rice Wilson. This is nice. I have the 2026 overall first-round pick. What moves should I make? My roster is above. So looking at this roster, we want to know what moves you can make. Right now, I'm shipping off A.J. Brown. If people believe that A.J. Brown will have a better landing spot next year, honestly, I'm trading A.J. Brown for picks right now. Picks and a player, maybe QJ and a couple of picks, something like that. However people value A.J. Brown in your league, that's up to the people.
I think Devontae. I love the stack that you have with A.J. Brown. I'd try to get Devontae for him.
Yeah, if you could go out there and get Devonta Smith for A.J. Brown, that's cool. Reed, similarly,
you yourself a stacked dynasty team, dude. I like
Reed is a player that I like, but due to his injuries and due to the usage, the only way he's going to be successful is if he moves teams or Matt LaFleur isn't the coach anymore. There's rumblings to say that might happen.
It's not going to happen.
Reed is a player that I want to move off of in Dynasty. Kittle, also a player that I want to move off of in Dynasty. I understand that he's been the overall tight end 1 or top 3 tight end in like 3 of the past 4 seasons. But Kittle, A.J. Brown, and Reed are absolutely 3 players that I'm moving off of in Dynasty right now. Looking at your roster, I'm absolutely wanting to move into a running back. So if I could pair up A.J. Brown and Kittle right now to move into a running back you think has future value. You already have Henderson. He already has Henderson. So if I can trade A.J. Brown and Kittle, if I could trade A.J. Brown and Kittle into something that has potentially some value moving forward in the running back department, I'm absolutely doing something like that. Running backs that I think that you can consider.
I look at Manunge, cheap young guy.
Yeah, but he's not going to be cheap in Dynasty. So guys, he's going to be cheaper, but guys that I would consider getting into, realistically speaking, is the future of Chase Brown. The future of Chase Brown is up in the air.
Chase Brown will be replaced by a 3rd-round draft pick.
What will happen there? Judkins is going to cost you a lot. This is the time to probably buy him.
Or time to buy Judkins, yeah.
RJ Harvey's going to cost you a lot. This is the time to buy him. Woody Marks similarly. If these guys are on any roster that's losing right now and they need players to potentially win.
Actually, the only weak spot of your team might be tight end. I might just go try to get Warren.
Kittle and Strange is fine. I mean, tight end is so volatile on a yearly basis. I actually would be looking at guys like AJ Barner. AJ Barner looking like he's going to do well in Seattle. He's going to cost you a little bit more because he's younger, but he's a guy that I try to walk myself into too. So that's kind of what I'd be thinking about. I don't know if you guys answered this, but Monangai drop or hold. Yeah, he's a hold for us, Jesse. We did answer that. You could go head back into the show. We did answer that one. I have to pick 3 between Saquon, Etienne, Swift, Vidal, and Woody. Titan, I understand why you want to bench him. I get it. They lost Lane Johnson last week, but for me, it's very hard to not play Vidal and Woody this week, knowing the projectable volume that is going to come their way. Then you look at it and you say, if Swift gets a full complement of carries, it could be a pretty good game for DeAndre Swift. The matchup is good enough that they could capitalize on that. However, at the end of the day, and this is the other thing, that when you look at matchups, Saquon Barkley and Swift have kind of the worst of that grouping of matchups. I think that you could end up on Saquon, Vidal, and Woody. But again, I wouldn't also be mad if you started Swift, Vidal, and Woody as well. But I think it's a little too head gamey. I do think that they are going to have to utilize Saquon Barkley more in this game against Detroit.
Yes.
Just because of the way Detroit plays football. And Dan Campbell knows that he can suffocate Jalen Hurts and make Jalen Hurts make mistakes. And when they suffocate Jalen Hurts, who gets the ball? It's Saquon Barkley. So Barkley, Vidal, and Woody for me on that one.
So for plot thoughts, this one's pretty straightforward. You got to go with Ladd in the playoffs. Simple fact, Herbert's carrying the day versus Minnesota. It's not really a debate.
Yeah. And Christian, we answered that one up there. And Ryan, trade Ladd and Saquon for Puka. Oh, man, yeah.
I would do that.
Yeah, I would do that. I have Javonte Williams and Jonathan Taylor and Woody Marks. My other receivers are Garrett Wilson and Marv, which are injured. Besides that, I have Debo and yeah, you need Puka.
You got to do that trade.
You have to do that for Puka. That's fair value for Puka too. I would do that in a heartbeat, Ryan, knowing that my wide receivers need a lot of help. The reason I'm worried about Woody is because
the Texans O-line is garbage, but the simple fact is the volume is there, and volume supersedes everything in fantasy football.
Well, in framing it another way, Joe, is that the Titans have allowed 23 rushing attempts on average per game to fantasy running backs. And
because
it is not
garbage time for real.
It is not likely that Tennessee holds a lead for a very long time in this game. Even though the Houston O-line is garbage, that's a fact. It still doesn't take away from the fact that Titans cannot generate a pass rush and they can't generate anything on the defensive line. Am I crazy to be leaning Flacco over Holmes? Also thoughts on Andrews versus Loveland rest of the season. Jonathan,
it's not crazy. It's definitely Flacco over Mahomes.
It's not crazy. But like I said earlier when we were talking about this, Jonathan, is that it is very likely that Mahomes has a 3-touchdown, 2 interceptions, 300-yard game. And it's likely also that Flacco can have that type of game too. So I don't think these players are as far apart as projections might tell you. Now, as far as thoughts on Loveland and Andrews rest of season, Andrews is just going to be a touchdown magnet. He is not going to get yards. If he doesn't get a touchdown, he's probably going to be close to a 0 for you.
And guys, I told you on Monday, Loveland is going to be the most overrated player this week because he had the highlight touchdown last week. And
bingo, bango, baby. Pierce right now
Pierce
is a better start than Michael Pittman. Pierce is a better start than Michael Pittman right now. And Pittman's the only other piece that you can get from that team. I think I'd still do it to get Jamar Chase.
I would do it. I'd accept it.
I'd still do it.
I just want
Jay Rogers. Need 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, and 1 flex. Full PPR. Josh Jacobs, Rico Dowdle, Saquon Barkley, Travion Henderson, Nico Collins, Cortland Sutton, Deebo Samuel, Troy Franklin. This is going to be gross coming out of my mouth. Again, Josh Jacobs. You start Josh Jacobs every week. He's almost guaranteed a touchdown every single week. Other running back. Joe likes Travion Henderson. You can slot him into that running back slot if you want to, because you're not putting Travion in the flex. You're starting him in the running back spot, okay?
Yep.
2 wide receivers. By default, I'm landing on Nico and Troy Franklin for volume. Those are the guys I'm going for volume. Even though Troy Franklin has a shitty matchup, I'm on Nico and Troy Franklin because of volume. So then you're down to the flex. Cortland's out. Debo's out. Now it's down to Rico or Saquon, Joe.
I'm going Saquon. And the reason you have to put Henderson in is the Thursday Night Football rule. You never put a Thursday Night Football player in your flex.
And with Rico Dowdle's injury, I think you could end up ultimately making the decision between between Rico and Saquon on Sunday if Rico's injury is because he's dealing with the quad injury. Saquon's not. Pittman is the only other piece that I can get from Team Fair. Daniel Jones or Bo Nix rest of the season and or dynasty. So
I go Daniel.
Daniel Jones' schedule gets a little bit harder from a quarterback perspective. We saw that he doesn't have to do much in order for them to potentially win games.
They trust them, and they're not trusting Bo Nix, and that's my fundamental answer.
And I'm going to say this, Joe. I understand everything that you're saying about Bo Nix, but here's what I also understand, that outside of last week, which was a putrid performance, we have 20, 25, 40, 13, 18, 30, 13, 21.
Oh, no. The rest of the career, Bo Nix obviously has a lot more meat on the bone. I'm just talking rest of the season. And in Dynasty, I treat quarterbacks as I can always get another one.
Yeah, that's
unless you're one of the elites, but Bo Nix never going to be Lamar or Josh Allen.
Yeah,
so I'm not really worried about
Big Band. I think I'm on Daniel Jones, but I'm still not writing off Bo Nix like most people will. Jamar gets Pittsburgh when I'm playing the garbage team. He's going to get me 30+ points, and I'll probably win by 40. Yeah, absolutely.
Probably will.
9-1 Big Bando. Yeah, I don't think it's a bad idea going with Daniel Jones rest of the season. Regardless of which option, do you think both are fine? Mick, yeah, I think both those trades are fine. It just depends on if you want to start 2 of the Dallas wide receivers. And honestly, if you want to try to get more for Jonathan Taylor, that's your prerogative. You can potentially
chase in a piece.
You can potentially survive, but with Jonathan Taylor on a bye this week and Jamar coming off the bye, I really, really like Jamar long term for the rest of the season. Am I buying Hampton right now? I'm just trying to get injured guys off the down bad teams who have them. I think it's fair.
Great strategy. It's how you win.
Titan, I think it's fair that if you're secure on your playoff spot and you're not worried about any injuries to your starting players and you have the capital to buy into it, Hampton in the playoffs, if he plays, is a reasonable buy if you have the equity. I'm not giving up a lot to get him, though. I'd actually give up probably the same amount for Bucky and Hampton. That's kind of why I'm wiffle-waffling on that Bucky Irving kind of thing.
Breaking news, Purdy will start.
Yeah. It still doesn't make a difference to me. I'm thinking of trading Nico Collins for Chase Brown.
Trade Collins, let alone for Chase Brown. So you will never hear me endorse that.
Joe will never endorse a Nico Collins trade. I think if you're looking for a running back, it's fair enough value. I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't do it. I'd keep Nico and look for a different running back.
So you got offered Swift for Genty straight up. Would you do it?
I got offered Swift. So your running backs are Cook, Swift, Monty, and Hunt. And somebody offered somebody offered you Genty for Swift straight up. I think I'd still keep Swift.
I'd keep Swift. Genty's about to fall off a cliff. I brought it up a lot of different times in today's show. Luca, rewatch from the beginning. We hit it very early in the beginning.
And Lucas, for this other question, hold on. There's another question there. Other question. Cook, should I trade him for the tough playoff schedule? I wouldn't worry
about the tough playoff schedule. Cook's a beast.
As we have shared, the Buffalo Bills have a tough playoff schedule for running backs, and James Cook can absolutely get blanked certain weeks. But again, Browns, Patriots, those are the two top run defenses. They don't have to give him the volume, but he might end up in the touchdown. If you can get fair value for Cook, knowing we're entering playoff time and people are preparing for that, yes, trade him. If you don't get fair value and it's just like a run-of-the-mill trade, I don't see a reason to have to, because he's on an offense that's going to move the ball. He's going to be valuable in that offense. Which football teams are you a fan of? We're both live in Pittsburgh. We both like the Pittsburgh Steelers. I like the Detroit Lions. I also like the Cincinnati Bengals and the Saints. You guys, if you watched on Monday, you saw me wearing a Seahawks hoodie. I don't really like Seattle. I bought it at Marshall's for like $8. I'm thinking about, and anytime you can get like official apparel, like this Bengals one, I got at Marshall for like 10. And on like NFL Shop, this is like a $50 hoodie. This is one of those combine hoodies. Super comfortable. I'm thinking about starting Vidal over Woody in the flex. I think Vidal is a fair start for you, Plot. I still value Woody higher than Vidal this week because the matchup is better for Woody in a game script where they should be winning. Now, Vidal
is like that perfect borderline guy. Like, it's totally okay if you have Vidal on your bench. Like, that doesn't make you make mistakes. It's a fair question. It's just the way that it is.
Yeah, and in terms of like I said, the other running backs from your team, Titan, when we were talking about it, Woody, Saquon, Swift is fair. If you want to leave, again, at the end of the day, I think Swift and Vidal are going to project about the same. The only equity that you have to think about is the touchdown equity. Which one do you think is more likely to get a touchdown? And that's the one I'd be starting. Non-drunk Mike McDaniel, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Well, that's a good thing or a bad thing. I've been one hit fire forever.
Any trades I have: London, Nico, Rome, Igbuka, running backs are Woody, Dowdle, Brees, and Manungai. Roman, I would honestly like.
I would package Rome and try to upgrade your running backs.
We talked about this a couple weeks ago when we were saying, is it okay to trade Brees Hall? Yeah, it's okay to trade Brees Hall. It's an offense that doesn't have to move the ball if it doesn't want to. Brees Hall is locked and loaded in the volume, though. So if they continue to use him with volume, they didn't end up trading him at the deadline. So that means that they're just going to want to wear him out as much as they possibly can before they give him up to the next person. So Brees Hall is absolutely one of those guys that you can move. If you pair up Brees Hall and Rome to really elevate your running back room a little bit more, that's what I would do, because I'm very confident going forward with London, Nico, and Igbuka. And I don't think you have much to worry about there. If I could elevate Brees Hall and Rome into something very good, like a Josh Jacobs right now, I would totally 100% do that, Rome. Titans Dynasty now. Jayden Daniels, Dak, Ladd, JJ, Garrett Wilson, Rome, Genty, Etienne, Tracy, Ramondre, Harvey, Bowers in the flex. Again, 2 flex, no tight end. Which 5 would you keep? Okay, here's the 5 I would keep right now. Brock Bowers, 100%.
Yes.
Jayden Daniels,
Genty,
100%. Justin Jefferson, 100%. Genty, 100%. Okay, so then this lands on, do you want to roll with where Garrett Wilson lands in the future? Do you want to roll with Ladd and his production now? Do you want to see the development of Rome, or do you want to see the development of RJ Harvey? So for me,
I would go with Garrett Wilson.
I'm on Garrett Wilson
on his best day could be a league winner. He just is never with a good system. Yeah. And I would go with Wilson as the 5th one. Your other list is
Jayden Daniels, Justin Jefferson, Garrett Wilson, Genty. We have the right. Jayden Daniels, Justin Jefferson, Garrett Wilson, Genty, and Bowers.
Yeah, right? That's right.
Okay, great. I'm not winning this year, so I'm looking to consolidate for a better running back like Hampton. I think that's fair. If I could move Rome and Etienne to get into Hampton in a dynasty league, yeah, sure, that's fine.
No doubt.
Pick 2 to start: Henderson, Rashad, Diggs, or Aaron Jones. Again, we've talked about this.
Henderson and Jones.
We talked about the possible problems of starting 2 Thursday night football players. I like Diggs and Henderson this week. It's a shame that they're starting on Thursday. I think for that reason, it's Henderson and Jones, but I don't think that Diggs is a bad play this week. I think that he's a very good play considering that Booty's out, and he's probably going to end up in that 13 to 16 point window with maybe a little bit more on the bench. Never bench.
It's definitely going to be a bad game tonight. It's the Jets. The Jets are never in a good game.
The Hall game is going to be what it is, guys. Hall is going to get probably like 80% of whatever offense the Jets throw out this week. It's going to be like Garrett Wilson was a couple like last year, right? He's going to get like 80% of the offense, and whatever happens, happens. It's not a comfortable start by any degree of the imagination, but the volume is there. Hall took my friend's girl in high school, so I say bench. Love it, plot. I enjoy that. So rather than dropping Scat, I put him on IR. That dude has a great locker room presence. He's a great teammate and brings out the best in others. I refuse to drop him. You are a Giants fan, and I fully endorse this.
I also endorse fantasy football room locker culture.
Yeah. I think it's fair in a dynasty league to trade Odunze for Woody. Yes. I do think that that's fair because there's nothing to say that Nick Chubb is going to stick around. Woody is productive, and if they can get this line in better shape, they have shown that they can score points, and they have a good enough defense to do that. The window's not closed there. Odunze is a good enough talent, but I think Odunze for Woody in a dynasty league is a fair trade. You know what? This is something Mike Tomlin said in an interview the other day. You don't put your words in my mouth. Don't put your words in my mouth. This is going to be a great game. I hope so. Rico or Henderson, Harvey this week. I have Igbuka in my flex. Flo, we talked about all this episode. Why Henderson?
We're talking about a lot of them, Flo.
Why Henderson is going to be a great play this week. Why Harvey is going to be a great play this week, and why Rico can potentially be a good play this week. This is a good problem to have this week. And who would have thought 4 weeks ago, 5 weeks ago, that this would be a problem that would be a good problem to have, right? So looking at it here, I think that you land on Henderson. I like Harvey and Dowdle a lot, but I think you land on Henderson if you think that they're going to eventually use Henderson more. However, the problem is if they're up early, they could easily take Travion Henderson out of this matchup and just put in Terrell Jennings and run this clock out. So that's the other.
They're still going to do that. He's going to have 2 touchdowns, though.
This is the problem with Travion. I think I still start Travion out of those guys, but I am comfortable starting all 3 of those. And I think they all project very similarly.
Thursday night's stupid.
All things the same. If you want to stay away from Thursday night, I get it. And I think Harvey's a great play or Rico's a great play off of Thursday night. What do you think, Joe?
I'm going Henderson. I've been saying this whole show, and I'm not messing with it.
Sir, who do you like more rest of season, Jackson Dart or Brock Purdy? Single quarterback, that'd be my backup for Mahomes. Titan, you said it
Dart,
better.
You have Dart because he's the only one who could start over Mahomes.
It's Dart. Dart would, and I don't know who this was last week that I said Dart over Jalen Hurts. Dart was the play. Dart, when he's healthy, is the play. Even over
guys, you got us for an extra hour in this one. That doesn't normally happen. We're going to wrap up here on Titan.
Would you keep Woody over Jayden Daniels? It's an 8-man dynasty, so I can afford to find. Joe said this very well earlier. In dynasty leagues, there is a chance that you can always find another quarterback.
That's right.
You have seen this year that even in a non-dynasty league, that Stafford has been outscoring some dynasty keeper quarterbacks. So if you don't want to keep Jayden Daniels and you like the equity of the running back room, which I always like, but again, they could fade as well.
And there's always 2 rookies that come in as a starter that you can pick up. So,
and you have that high level pick. So if you wanted to get a quarterback next year, you could. So I would trade Rome for Woody, and I would keep Woody over Jayden Daniels. Yes, I would.
Bob's got a big Woody right now, and that's how we're going to end the show.
I would. Guys, we appreciate all the love. Like, follow, subscribe if you haven't already. We will be back with you Monday at 3:45 Eastern Standard Time